Chapter 1066. They didn't qualify and were eliminated. Everyone was shocked. The problem was that the they that Xueqing mentioned were the first 8 Tribulations Swordmasters. They were also the legendary people who could decide the fate of the heavens. If they didn't qualify, who did? They didn't qualify because there must be one Tribulations Swordmaster who qualified. But this person hasn't appeared yet. Maybe it's the first Tribulations Swordmaster, or maybe it's the 10th Tribulations Swordmaster. Xueqing said slowly, "It's been tens of thousands of years since I came to this land. Back then, I was curious about this matter. After the Tribulations Swordmaster reorganized the heavens, I followed him secretly and went to the place where he nourished the heavens." At this point, everyone's expression turned solemn. What Xueqing was about to say was the top secret of the heavens. I followed that Tribulations Swordmaster and saw that he was troubled and tortured by something during that period of time. He was in so much pain that he wanted to commit suicide a few times. But he didn't die in the end. Xueqing said solemnly, "I can see that he doesn't want to do that. He's very conflicted. He also has a conscience. He even wants to die, to use his own death to end everything. But unfortunately, he can't even die. He was tortured like that for 2 years." Bu Liuqing looked at Chu Yang. His gaze was complicated. During that period of time, this Tribulations Swordmaster cursed the same person tens of thousands of times. Xueqing said lightly, "Who was he cursing?" Bu Liuqing asked. "He was cursing the person who created the Tribulations Swordmaster. He is the one who created the Catastrophe Sword." Xueqing said indifferently, "And not only that, he cursed once in those 2 years. It was too late for regrets." What did he regret? Chu Yang had a feeling in his heart, but he still asked. He's been repeating these words non-stop. Xueqing looked up at the ceiling and said word by word, he regretted, the lake of despair. Sigh. 7 words, a sigh. Sigh. Chu Yang sighed silently and was in a daze. At this moment, no one knew that Chu Yang's heart was in turmoil. He felt a little lucky. He felt a little proud, a little satisfied and a little sad. Xueqing didn't know what these 7 words meant, but Chu Yang was someone who had experienced it himself. At this moment, he could completely understand what the Tribulations Swordmaster was regretting. The Lake of Despair was indeed the biggest test of the Tribulations Swordmaster. If he made a wrong step, then his fate would repeat the cycle of the previous 8 Tribulations Swordmasters, falling into that vicious circle of eternal damnation. Presumably, the choice made by the Master of Calamity Sword at that time was the complete opposite of his own. So, the illusion, the reality, or, at that time, the illusory realm changed according to the heart. And the heart led to the end. He rejoiced and felt proud that he had survived the greatest test. In the future, his path would be different from that of the previous 8 masters of the Calamity Sword. They were the Tribulations Tribulations TTTTSTSS, the Tribulations Sword TSSTSSC. Xueqing paused for a while. Chu Yang knew that she was giving him time to think on purpose. Finally, Xueqing continued, this Tribulations Sword Master struggled with himself for 2 whole years. In the end, he still chose to send his brother into the heaven-repairing cave. Chu Yang sighed. Bu Liuqing and the others also sighed. The Tribulations' emotions moved heaven and earth. This was recognized by the heavens. But such a hero was sacrificed just like that. Where was the justice? Xueqing said lightly, but at that moment, I felt that his brother's soul was dissipating and not disappearing. It was as if he was breaking into pieces and slowly diverging to another unknown place. And that place was not the heavens beyond heaven. At this point, everyone was shocked. So, those Tribulations Sword Masters didn't die? Chu Yang asked. No, they died. But in a different way, they survive. Xueqing looked deeply at Chu Yang and said, that unknown place, in my opinion, should be the Netherworld. The Netherworld. Chu Yang sighed. The Tribulations Sword Master's mission came to an end when the upper 3 heavens were unified. But this is also a huge dividing line. This is the key. Tribulations disappeared in this world, but they will still exist in another world. But the tribulation's sword master really disappeared. Zi Sheqing said lightly, disappeared. I understand. Chu Yang took a deep breath. Zi Sheqing meant that tribulations didn't really disappear completely, but the tribulation's swordmaster would disappear completely. This was completely in line with Chu Yang's expectations. How could a completely heartless person receive good karma? Although this was a little idealistic, Chu Yang insisted that this was not in accordance with the laws of heaven. People's actions might have different standpoints, but people's hearts were divided into good and evil. Zi Sheqing didn't go into details. She only said, so, I reckon that the Tribulation's Sword Master's mission is actually something that hasn't been successful all this time. But this failure can allow the person who folded the heavens to achieve another level of, another, purpose. Everyone nodded silently. So, I reckon that, the Tribulation's Sword Master's mission definitely doesn't end here. Because the Tribulation's Sword Master has completely disappeared. This doesn't make sense, Zi Sheqing said. But how do you know that he has completely disappeared and not the same as Tribulations? Chu Yang asked. Bu Liuqing smiled. Senior Zi, did you attach your divine senses? Zi Sheqing smiled. Yes, I attached 10 divine senses and they disappeared together with these 10 people. But, after 10,000 years, only one came back. As for the most important one, it had disappeared. Because of the disappearance of that divine sense, it caused another loss of my divine senses. So, I never came out after I recovered from my cultivation in the Black Blood Forest. It was only until 20,000 years ago that I recovered my divine senses. I'm impressed. Bu Liuqing let out a long sigh. Only a peak-level expert like him would know how much danger and disbelief was contained in Zi Sheqing's casual word. The disappearance of divine senses and the disappearance of divine senses were definitely two different concepts. Disappearance was equivalent to death, and the death of divine senses could result in death, disability, or mental retardation. Even Bu Liuqing himself couldn't avoid these two outcomes if his divine senses were to disappear. But Zi Sheqing was able to cultivate and recover. You shouldn't admire me, but the power that can completely eliminate my divine senses. Zi Sheqing smiled. Bu Liuqing smiled. Big sister, you were going to talk about the heavens beyond heavens. Chu Le reminded her. But you're talking about the Tribulation's Swordmaster now. I'm talking about the heavens beyond heavens. Zi Sheqing smiled and pulled Chu Le into her arms. She said, I mentioned the Tribulation's Swordmaster because I think his real mission should be to rush out of the heavens beyond heavens, to go to a higher level place to complete some things. Or, to complete the final mission given by this powerful expert. And, I won't send myself and my brothers to their deaths in the upper three heavens. Here, we're talking about the heavens beyond heavens, Zi Sheqing said lightly, which is the real Heavenly Imperial Court. The real Heavenly Imperial Court. Everyone's heart trembled violently. Chu Yang lowered his head and leaned his forehead against Mo Qingwu's little head. He could feel the warmth of this little girl's body as he silently pondered in his heart. Beyond the heavens, there are countless worlds. Countless continents. Every one of these continents is similar to the heavens beyond heavens continent. But, above the heavens, which is the common, above these small worlds, no one knows. There's the tightest heavenly perception there. Only when one's cultivation activates this heavenly perception will he be tested. This is what you usually call heavenly punishment. Zi Sheqing smiled lightly. Heavenly punishment is actually a test. If you pass the test of heavenly punishment, you'll be qualified to enter that mysterious world. Have you entered that world before? Bu Liuqing asked anxiously. Yes, I have. Zi Sheqing nodded faintly. However, I only stayed for a short period of time before I came out. Less than 1,000 years. How's it like inside? Bu Liuqing asked. Inside. Zi Sheqing smiled lightly. It's vast and boundless, full of spiritual energy, and full of expert. Brother Bu, you'll know when you get there. What can be called the heavens beyond heavens? With your cultivation, how's it like, inside? Bu Liuqing asked, still unwilling to give up. It's like traveling. Even going down. Zi Sheqing said reservedly, "Of course, I'm not sure about the specific situation. I went there just to find someone. Since I couldn't find him, I left early. I didn't come into contact with the experts of the extreme Tao in there. I didn't even come into contact with the people of the heavens beyond heaven's imperial court." Go! Bu Liuqing took a breath, his eyes shining brightly. The messenger in charge of the heavens beyond heaven's continent is from the heavens beyond heaven's imperial court. Zi Sheqing smiled and said meaningfully, "Brother Bu, that place is more dangerous than here, but there are also more opportunities. That's where the real experts of the extreme Tao grow." Bu Liuqing's eyes shone even brighter. Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro looked at each other and saw each other's sparkling eyes. The real heavens beyond heaven's imperial court. Chu Yang repeated silently. Leaning on Mo Qingwu's soft hair, he thought, life is just like autumn. Since there's such a place, as long as there's a chance, I'll definitely bring my brothers to the heavens beyond heavens. Let my Qingwu dance in the real heavens beyond heaven's imperial court. One dance moves the heavens. To be continued. Chapter 1067. Dong Wushang's muscular body sat upright like a mountain. His expression was solemn, but the tip of his brows and the corner of his eyes were filled with saber intent. There's such a place. I must go up and take a look. I must. Rui Butong raised his head, but he was thinking in his heart, if the brothers can go up, I'll go up and take a look too. But if the brothers don't go up, I won't go up either. No matter how good the place is, if I'm the only one there, what's the point? Zi Sheqing quietly observed the changes in everyone's expressions. She said slowly, the reason why I've gathered everyone here today is because everyone here has the potential to go there, including these two little girls. Qingwu, Le. At this point, Zi Sheqing finally turned to look at Chu Yang. The look in her eyes was extremely complicated. Hearing Zi Sheqing's words, Bu Liuqing and the Moonbreeze couple were a little surprised. There were 11 people here. Other than Zi Sheqing, there were 10 more. The three of them had no problem. Chu Yang should be able to do it, Qingwu should be able to do it, Qianqian had the potential, and this Dong Wushang with saber intent and his wife also had the ability. But that ordinary Rui Butong, and Rui Butong who had an innate constitution but was unable to cultivate due to his chronic illness, how could they have such potential? Zi Sheqing looked at everyone present and smiled lightly. She said, however, having potential doesn't mean that you have the ability, and it doesn't mean that you can definitely go there. There are plenty of people with potential who fall in the process. There are even people with enough potential to rush to the supreme position of the strongest in the world, but they will be killed by a weak person when they are still very weak. So, the next step will depend on luck. She looked at everyone present and said softly, everyone, I have to remind you. Luck is one's ability, and also the most important thing in one's ability. Luck can allow you to meet the right person, have a suitable goal, and then fight hard to reach the peak that you should reach. Luck can also allow you to have the potential to be number one in the world, but you don't need to participate in the battle between the strongest in the world when you start out. You don't even need to know what's going on. Just the strong wind alone can turn you into dust. This is luck. If you're unlucky, the prodigy will also die. With good luck, even mediocre people can rise to prominence. Zi Sheqing said plainly. Everyone was thinking carefully luck. This was an illusory thing. How could one grasp it? At this point, Zi Sheqing's words were somewhat abstruse. Luck, we mortals only think that it is a gift from the heavens. All sorts of coincidences are either luck, misfortune, or good luck. Zi Sheqing said softly, actually, it's not luck. To ordinary people, it was just a coincidence, but to those with great abilities, it was something they could control. To control the luck of others. Controlling luck. Bu Liuqing was flabbergasted. Zi Sheqing said lightly, there's nothing strange about it. Even if you haven't heard that luck can be controlled, you should have at least heard of the dragon vein, the fate of nations, and the fate of heaven and earth. Isn't there a saying about the luck of the clan? Everyone nodded. That's right. Such a saying was very common and familiar. Right now, the Tianji city they were in, the Zhuge clan, was a place where they could borrow the power of a mysterious force to probe the mysteries of the heavens. He was someone who could change fate. Furthermore, this was the most mysterious and unfathomable knowledge. Fate. It's a kind of luck. Zi Sheqing said lightly, the so-called unfathomable mysteries of the heavens are actually the veins of fate. In this way, you should more or less understand it. Everyone nodded in realization. Previously, they really didn't think about fate and luck together. They always felt that fate was great, but luck was only a person's. But after hearing Zi Sheqing's words, they felt that it made sense. After Zi Sheqing finished speaking, everyone started to ponder silently. The world over there is very exciting. Zi Sheqing looked out of the window. Outside the window, the north wind was blowing. It was already afternoon, and the north wind was getting more and more shrill. The sky was also getting darker and darker. That world is very exciting. Ha. Bu Liuqing said faintly, but luck requires you to find a suitable person, a suitable target, and to fight for it. Only then can you achieve this goal. Miss Z, do you mean this suitable person is this generation's catastrophe swordmaster? There was a hint of mockery in Bu Liuqing's voice. Zi Sheqing frowned slightly and was somewhat displeased. She said lightly, Brother Bu and the Moonbreeze couple have already transcended this step. They don't need the Calamity Sword Master to fight for it. But then again, if Brother Bu insists on thinking that this is what I mean. Zi Sheqing said lightly. Then, this is what I mean. Bu Liuqing said awkwardly, I'm just asking casually, I don't mean anything else. Zi Sheqing said coldly, I don't mean anything else either. She sat quietly, and an invisible majestic aura was emitted from her. Bu Liuqing sat on his seat, feeling as if he was sitting on pins and needles. His face gradually turned red, and he finally smiled bitterly and said, Miss Z, I'm just joking. And, you know what I'm upset about. Ha. The Moonbreeze couple was surprised. They thought to themselves, this is strange. With Bu Liuqing's unyielding temper, he actually gave in so easily. This is really strange. What they didn't know was that Bu Liuqing had his own pettiness. His words weren't meant to question Zi Sheqing, and definitely not to target Chu Yang. It was because Mo Qingwu was in love with Chu Yang that he was upset about. It was like a girl that he had painstakingly raised was about to become someone else's. That kind of feeling. It was purely to vent, but it caused Zi Sheqing to misunderstand. How could Bu Liuqing not feel awkward? How could Zi Sheqing not know what Bu Liuqing meant? She also knew that Bu Liuqing didn't mean any harm when he said this. It was just a moment of discomfort in his heart. But the problem was, Zi Sheqing herself wasn't very comfortable with this problem. So Bu Liuqing's question hit the nail on the head. Zi Sheqing immediately used this as a pretext to make a fuss. This made this supreme martial artist Bu so anxious that his face turned red, and his sweat fell like rain. Chu Yang, who was at the side, looked up. Looking at this, looking at that, he knew that if he opened his mouth now, both sides would point their spears at him. So he wisely lowered his head, and didn't say a word. Do whatever you want. Seeing how awkward Bu Liuqing was now, Zi Sheqing couldn't bear it. She sighed and said, forget it, when I talk about this, my thoughts aren't very smooth. So I'm a little impatient. Bu Liuqing smiled and said, it's okay. It's okay. Zi Sheqing nodded and said, everyone, what you have to take note of is that if you intend to rush up, then from now on, what you should train and improve the most is not your cultivation, but your spirit and willpower. Everyone who has just gone up will encounter countless risks. Therefore, the requirements for one's spirit and willpower are especially important. Everyone nodded silently and remembered it well. If I want to leave this time, I will most likely go to that place. It is highly likely that he will go there, Zi Sheqing said plainly. Chu Yang was shocked and said, don't you want to go and look for it? Zi Sheqing's eyes revealed a tinge of nostalgia. She said sadly, that is an obsession. Chu Yang nodded. That was an obsession. But it was also just an obsession, nothing more. But it's also possible that I won't go there. Zi Sheqing's pretty face turned cold. She gritted her teeth and said. Chu Yang kept quiet out of fear. He hurriedly shut his mouth. Moon breeze. Zi Xiecheng looked at Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro seriously. Yes. The two hurriedly answered. You can look for Chu Yang for your problems. When his medical skills improve, he will be able to solve this problem for you. Zi Xiecheng lifted her chin toward Chu Yang. Really? Feng Yuro was overjoyed. Yu Lingxue's face was also full of excitement. Chu Yang definitely did not expect Zi Xiecheng to sell him out without batting an eyelid. Didn't they agree that he would not be able to handle this matter here? There was a way after the tribulation space was upgraded. But once Moonbreeze and Moonbreeze heard about it, wouldn't they kill him? Big Sister Z, this. Chu Yang's face was bitter. He muttered fearlessly. Shut up. Zi Xiecheng's face was cold. This matter must be settled by you. You can't do it now. Can't you do it when your medical skills have improved? Why are you so unconfident? Chu Yang grimaced as if he had a toothache. Hissing and sucking in cold air, he nodded with a head full of cold sweat. Oh, okay. That's all for today. I can't go into too much detail about the rest. Zi Xiecheng chuckled. Moon Breeze and Bu Liuqing both laughed. She couldn't go into too much detail. This was too interesting. Because if she went into too much detail, there wouldn't be any surprises or accidents after she went up, and it would inevitably be greatly reduced. People of the martial world still liked excitement. Also, there's one more thing I need to ask of all of you. Zi Xiecheng said in a low voice, I'm afraid I'll be leaving soon. By then. Chu Yang and the rest. I need the three of you to take care of them. The Moonbreeze couple and Bu Liuqing agreed readily. Of course. Feng Yuro thought, my disciple is dead set on him, I can't not take care of her. Bu Liuqing thought, my disciple is dead set on him, I can't not take care of her. At this moment, the two of them were actually saying the same thing. Almost at the same time, the second grandmasters of the big clans also gathered in one place. This place was the most secret underground chamber of the Zhuge clan. In order to prevent Zi Xiecheng's powerful divine senses from prying, the Zhuge clan had no choice but to reveal this most secret place for discussion. Yi Di, Xiao Se, Lan Muxue, Zhuge Hutu and the rest all sat with heavy expressions. They didn't say a word. A black shadow flashed and the Dharma Supreme walked in alone with a heavy expression. Immediately, the dozens of supreme martial artists outside released their divine senses at the same time, forming a huge protective shield to prevent eavesdropping. Inside, 10 high-level supreme martial artists also released their divine senses at the same time, forming a protective shield. This small space was tightly sealed. Chapter 1068. The Dharma Supreme sat down, his gaze sweeping across the faces of everyone present. He said indifferently, what are your thoughts on today's matter? Yi Di sighed with a bitter smile. It's far more serious than we imagined. All the second grandmasters sighed together. Yi Di pondered for a moment before he said, Lord Dharma Supreme, I'll be bold to ask you a question. The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, go ahead. Is this Chu Yang the master of the Calamity Sword? Yi Di's expression was solemn as he asked the question word by word. This question had been lingering in Yi Di's heart for a long time. He had also asked the Dharma Supreme once before. However, the Dharma Supreme did not answer directly at that time. He only said that he would wait and see. Today, at this gathering, Yi Di brought up this question again. However, his state of mind was already very different from back then. At that time, Chu Yang was just a negligible hidden danger. However, now, he had become an opponent that could compete with the big clans, although this was nothing in itself and was not qualified to have anything. However, the strength of the backer behind him was shocking. When the other 8 second grandmasters heard this, they could not help but perk up their ears. This matter was really too important. If Chu Yang was the master of the Calamity Sword, then the big clans were really in danger. They had to think of a way to get rid of him as soon as possible. The Dharma Supreme was silent for a moment before he said, I don't think so. Or maybe I didn't find out. All the second grandmasters' hearts were beating like drums. The Dharma Supreme's words were remarkable. Was it true or not? The Dharma Supreme's eyes fell on Li Xiangxi's face. He said indifferently, Xiangxi, what do you think? Li Xiangxi laughed bitterly and said, I don't have much contact with this person. However, cough cough, the Li clan is in a very awkward position now. It's hard to say anything. All the second patriarchs snorted in unison. Of course you wouldn't panic now that you had one of the tribulations in your clan. However, you said such meaningless words. Xiangxi, is that Li Xiongtu in your clan confirmed to be one of the tribulations? The Dharma Supreme asked with a smile. I'm really not sure about that. Li Xiangxi shook his head and smiled bitterly. Lord Dharma Supreme, I'm just going to speak the truth here. If we really believed that he was one of the tribulations, the Li clan would not have come to the medicine banquet this time. But if he were to deny it, there was nothing he could do. This matter is currently a mess. Shi Jing from the Shi family said in annoyance, You dumb chicken, in my opinion, no one here is more clear-headed than you. You're just trying to take advantage of me. The Dharma Supreme smiled. I do believe in the words yearning. However, in my opinion, that might not be the one in your family. He said indifferently, for generations, before Calamity Sword Master's wings were fully grown, Calamity would not show himself. Hidden in the mortal world, it was impossible to distinguish between them. For 10,000 years, I don't know how many people have been wrongly killed, but in the real tribulation, no one has died. As for your family's Li Xiongtu, he had already spread this sort of rumor long ago. Furthermore, he did it in public. The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, Do you think that with so many of us here, we really can't kill Li Xiongtu? Even if the Li clan protects him with all its might, what can you do? Li Xiangxi was sweating profusely. You're right, Lord Dharma Supreme. However, he was thinking in his heart, even I can't tell if that person in my family is one of the tribulations. Can you really deduce it just by speculating? The Dharma Supreme stared at him for a while and finally said, Xiangxi, you can leave first. The Li clan should not participate in the discussion this time. Li Xiangxi looked at him in shock. The 8 second grandmasters looked at him fiercely. This sentence of the Dharma Supreme was tantamount to saying that Li Xiangxi did not believe the Dharma Supreme's words at all. In other words, although Li Xiangxi was sitting here now, he could actually be considered as a traitor. Lord Dharma Supreme, are we going to let him leave so easily? Xiao Se's face was filled with murderous intent. Why don't we just kill him here? What if he goes out and reveals our secret? What should we do then? That's right, Lord Dharma Supreme. This time, the Li clan has already made it clear that they are on the side of the Tribulation's Swordmaster. Sooner or later, they will become a huge threat. This time, we will get rid of Li Xiangxi and also remove a huge threat for the future, Lan Muxue said through gritted teeth. The other second grandmasters all agreed. Li Xiangxi's face was ashen. If they were to really fight, there would be no chance of him escaping alive. Only death awaited him. The crowd was in an uproar. The Dharma Supreme looked at Li Xiangxi and pondered for a long time. Then, he said, Xiangxi, leave. Remember what I said today. One day, you will realize. Some things will always be beyond your expectations. There will always be misunderstandings in many things. And some things will always be regretted. He waved his hand indifferently and said, Go. I will give you a chance to regret in the future. Lord Dharma Supreme, everyone exclaimed in unison. The Dharma Supreme's expression did not change. He only waved his hand again. Thank you, Lord Dharma Supreme. Xiangxi will never forget Lord Dharma Supreme's kindness today. Li Xiangxi cupped his fists and said emotionally, No need to stand on ceremony. Just remember my words. The Dharma Supreme said solemnly, If you leave now, there is no need for you to participate in the medicine banquet. Go back to the Li clan directly. If you continue to stay here, I am afraid you will be killed. Li Xiangxi trembled and said, Yes. He stood up and walked out in big strides. When he reached the door, he hesitated. The Dharma Supreme looked at his back view with a frown. But Li Xiangxi only hesitated for a moment before he really opened the door and walked out. Between the current interests of a big clan and the future prosperity of his descendants, he obviously chose the latter. The Dharma Supreme sighed softly. Lord Dharma Supreme, should we send someone to kill him? Xiao Se asked. Once Li Xiangxi leaves, he will become an irreconcilable enemy of ours. It will be completely different from the small fights we had previously. The Dharma Supreme shook his head indifferently. No need. He was silent for a moment before he said, the Li clan is not worthy of such attention. If he is not one of the tribulations, the Li clan will naturally still lean towards us in the future. If he is really one of the tribulations, we can also take this opportunity to grab hold of this clue and lure out the real tribulation's sword master. Therefore, Li Xiangxi cannot be killed. Everyone was enlightened. However, the tribulation's swordmaster is a long-term concern, while Chu Yang is a short-term concern. The Dharma Supreme tapped the table lightly with his finger. Everyone, don't underestimate this Chu Yang. The huge power that he can bring is now something that even the law enforcement officers have to take seriously. Yes. Yi Di said solemnly, this Chu Yang is indeed a huge concern at the moment. His backing is too strong, too strong. Therefore, we have to get rid of him. The Dharma Supreme sighed softly. He said, I remember that thousands of years ago, I once told all of you that every clan must nurture a secret force. This force must not be known to anyone. Now, it is time for this force to be put to use. Xiao Se nodded heavily. Lord Dharma Supreme, you mean, assassination? Assassination of Chu Yang. The Dharma Supreme shook his head lightly. No. The power of this young junior, Chu Yang, mainly comes from that mysterious woman. Therefore, killing Chu Yang alone will not help at all. It will even invite the crazy revenge of a peerless expert. Now that the tribulation's sword master is about to be born, we cannot afford such a loss. Therefore, if we want to kill, the first one to be killed is that mysterious and powerful woman. The Dharma Supreme tapped the table lightly with his finger and took away one of the teacups in front of him. If we want to do this, we need all of us here to take action together. In addition, we need to add the secret force, the combined power of hundreds of supreme martial artists, and invite Lord Wu to come out and do all we can to encircle and annihilate them, even at the cost of sacrifice. The Dharma Supreme's words were very heavy. Every word was like a huge hammer that hammered into the depths of everyone's hearts. Moreover, we need to create an environment where we have no choice but to fight to the death. Only then can we succeed. A hint of bloodlust flashed in the Dharma Supreme's eyes. Zhuge Hutu, your family's great nebula divide of heavenly secrets array will be put to use here. Zhuge Hutu trembled and said, yes, I will listen to the Dharma Supreme's instructions. The great nebula divide of heavenly secrets array draws on the power of the heavenly way, the power of the stars, the power of the earth, the veins of the mountains and rivers, the spirits of the people and the souls of the supreme martial artist. It is enough to kill experts who are 3 times more powerful than the array. If this great nebula divide of heavenly secrets array of heavenly secrets has 108 supreme martial artists taking part in it, then, in this world, who can surpass the combined power of all 108 people, including you and me, by more than 4 times? The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, therefore, the basic plan is set here. With 108 supreme martial artists taking charge of the eye of the array, and a total of 300 supreme martial artists maintaining it, Lord Wu Jueqing will provide support and protect the array with poison. This way, the power of the array can be doubled. It is equivalent to thousands of supreme martial artists attacking at the same time. Even if Bu Liuqing and Ning Tianya come at the same time, they will also die here. There is absolutely no chance of luck. Everyone listened with heavy hearts, but they couldn't help but heave a long sigh of relief. If that was the case, no matter how powerful that woman was, she would definitely die. Even if she was a deity, she would definitely not be able to escape from such an array. The Dharma Supreme was really generous. Once he made a move, it was already such a huge and powerful commotion. It's just that, how can we lure that woman into the array? Zhuge Hutu asked with a frown. Currently, they are with the Moonbreeze couple. If the Moonbreeze couple is in danger, she will definitely come to their rescue. The Dharma Supreme's eyes flashed. And the Moonbreeze couple will definitely be in danger. When the array is fully set up, I will invite the Moonbreeze couple for a talk in my name. With the temperament and character of the Moonbreeze couple, I have full confidence that they will come. Everyone perked up. Brilliant plan. The Dharma Supreme's long hair swayed even though there was no wind. He said indifferently, "How long has it been since I have schemed against someone like this? This woman, even if she dies, is worthy of being proud." He had finally been overtaken. Fuck. Just now, he saw a chat group of authors. One of the authors joked that Feng Ling had really created a new record. Basically, all the great gods had smashed him one by one. Haha, sigh, his heart ached. 7 days, 3 nights, crazy updates of close to 120,000 words, and he couldn't even maintain a first place? We are not far behind now. Everyone, let's work harder and charge ahead. Man fights for pride, Buddha fights for incense. I have been fighting and losing all the way till now. I have long been unyielding. I will not admit defeat. I still want to fight. Even if we lose twice, we still have 24 days. We will fight till the end. Chapter 1069. The two supreme martial artists gathered together. Zhuge Hutu took out the diagram of the Great Nebula Divide of Heavenly Secrets Array and explained it in detail. Zhuge Hutu did not want to reveal his clan's greatest trump card. However, if Xi Sheqing was not eliminated, the big clans would feel like there was a steel knife hanging over their necks. They could neither advance nor retreat. Just like in today's auction, Xi Sheqing alone suppressed everyone on his side. Everyone had no choice but to give her money despite their grievances. Why? If she was unhappy, she could wipe you out. And it was to wipe out your entire clan, not just one person. Who dared to disobey? If they disobeyed, they would cough. If they coughed, it meant that they were unhappy. If they continued to be unhappy, they would kill. This grievance almost caused everyone to have a brain hemorrhage. Smiling and throwing in more than double the amount to buy a bunch of medicine. And these people were all high and mighty people who had been at the top for thousands of years. Who could tolerate this? Not to mention, besides Xi Sheqing, there was also Bu Liuqing on Chu Yang's side. Now, Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro were also on Chu Yang's side. Such strong power made the whole world look askance. Not to mention Yu Lingxue's brother, Wu Qianqian, Bu Liuqing's brother, Heavenly Yin Body and Innate Spirit Meridians, Xi Sheqing's brother, Innate Body. These were 3 demon-like characters in the future. As long as there was space for them to grow up, they would definitely replace Bu Liuqing, Feng Yu and Xi Sheqing as the other 3 overlords of the world. Top figures. When that time came, with the addition of the new and old, the big clans would not be able to catch up even if they ate shit. Once Chu Yang's power rose, it would be unstoppable. Therefore, even if Zhuge Hutu was unwilling, he could only do so. The Dharma Supreme stood with his hands behind his back, looking at Zhuge Hutu and explaining. He said lightly, "For now, kill that woman first, then kill Bu Liuqing and Feng Yu. Lastly, we'll deal with Chu Yang and those little girls." He slightly lowered his head, and his long hair nearly covered his eyes. Only 2 rays of chilling light penetrated through the seams of his hair. He casually clenched his fist, and a thin staff formed from qi appeared in his hand. He pointed at the formation map and said indifferently, "Yi clan. Guard here. The lowest, 50 supreme martial artist. Yi Di, any problem?" The Night Emperor suddenly gritted his teeth and said, "No problem." The Dharma Supreme pointed his thin rod in another direction and said, "This place is the gate of life and death." He needed a sharp sense of death. "Xiao Se, can your Xiao clan take responsibility?" Xiao Se calculated for a while and said, "Including the hidden forces of the Xiao clan, we can mobilize 40 supreme martial artists and myself. Then, I feel that if we want to prevent that woman from breaking out of the encirclement and breaking through life and death, this force is not enough." The Dharma Supreme pondered for a moment. He knew that what Xiao Se said was the truth. If Xi Sheqing only wanted to escape when she was seriously injured, with her strength, she could totally kill Xiao Se and the others and escape far away. Then, there would be no end of trouble in the future. Thus, he said, since that's the case, I'll send you another 20 supreme martial artists from the law enforcement headquarters. Xiao Se was overjoyed and said, "If that's the case, I dare to guarantee with my head that nothing will go wrong." The Dharma Supreme nodded. He pointed at a few other places and made arrangements. When he reached the first place, he was silent for a moment before he said, "There are 50 supreme martial artists from the law enforcement headquarters guarding this place." Everyone nodded solemnly, cursing the Li clan in their heart. If the Li clan did not betray them, then with the combined strength of all these supreme martial artists and the great constellation array, they could totally recreate the power of the tribulation. In fact, it would be several times stronger. Once the Li clan left, this good thing would be gone. Bastard, none, pop-up window square, warning. Finally, the Dharma Supreme looked at the position of the eye of the array in the center. After thinking for a long time, he said, "I will do my best to get Lord Wu to guard this place personally, together with the 20 elders and 8 high priests of the law enforcement headquarters. Success in one battle. I will personally patrol the periphery." The Dharma Supreme stood with his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "In this battle, other than the forces of the various clans guarding their homes, all the elites of Chongqian will be mobilized, just to kill 4 people." The 8-second patriarchs instantly felt their blood boil. They instinctively felt their blood boiling and even their hair was about to stand on end. Bu Liuqing, Feng and you and I are at most peak experts of the heavenly layer. The Dharma Supreme smiled indifferently and said, "But that woman is a true expert of the extreme Tao. Therefore, the name of this battle shall be Slaying of the Tao." Slaying of the Tao. Yi Di murmured and repeated, only feeling his blood boiling. This battle directly concerns the future of the Chongqian clans and law enforcement officers. Everyone, a battle of life and death cannot be taken lightly. Sacrifices are inevitable. Everyone must be fully mentally prepared. The Dharma Supreme had basically finished his arrangements for this battle. All the supreme martial artists started to calculate the forces that they could mobilize. The sooner this matter is settled, the better. The more secretive, the better. The Dharma Supreme said solemnly, "We must complete all the arrangements before the medicine banquet start. During this period of time, do whatever you need to do and do not alert the enemy." Yes. Everyone agreed. The semi-finals of the medicine banquet will be in 2 days. The Dharma Supreme took a deep breath and said, "As the pharmacist of the Southeast Law Enforcement Officers, Chu Yang has already entered the semifinals and cannot be replaced. Moreover, I heard that Chu Yang's medical skills are superb and he has inherited the soul of the ancient medical saint. He is not to be underestimated. The most important thing is that we cannot touch him. Once we do, we will alert the enemy." Yi Di pondered and said, "What does the Dharma Supreme mean?" "Chu Yang is very likely to enter the finals. We have already announced the date of the finals to the world and the bunch of stubborn old men from the Medicine Valley will host it, so it cannot be changed. Before the finals, our men will need to rush over from all over the continent, obviously in a hurry. Therefore, we must deal with these people after the finals. Therefore, the champion's heaven-nourishing jade is very likely to fall into Chu Yang's hand." The Dharma Supreme said solemnly, "And the heaven-nourishing jade has the ability to bring the dead back to life and gather souls. Once he gets the heaven-nourishing jade, even if that woman is dead, there is still a certain possibility that he can use the opportunity of nourishing the heavens to revive her. Although such a chance is very slim and Chu Yang may not live until then, it is still a possibility that we must guard against. Therefore, Chu Yang cannot become the champion. He cannot get the heaven-nourishing jade." The following few sentences were not spoken by the Dharma Supreme, but were added by the crowd one after another. After they finished speaking, everyone realized that their expressions had become even more solemn. They looked at each other and couldn't help but smile bitterly. How could there be such a thing? The Medicine Valley is not under our control. The Dharma Supreme laughed bitterly and pointed out the most crucial point. Without the Medicine Valley, the heaven-nourishing jade cannot be refined either. Therefore, it is best for your pharmacists to ensure that nothing goes wrong and eliminate Chu Yang." The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, "Put an end to this. There must not be any mistake that could lead to a comeback." Shijing pondered and frowned. If it is the top pharmacist of each clan, there is a high possibility that Chu Yang will be eliminated. However, Our men have also passed the preliminary round and entered the semifinals, so it cannot be changed either. Moreover, pharmacists who have already participated in the medicine banquet once cannot participate again, because their luck has already dissipated. The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, "Isn't this easy?" Yi frowned slightly and said, "What does the Dharma Supreme mean?" The Dharma Supreme walked out and said, "We still can't strip Chu Yang's face, but the face of your own pharmacists can be stripped off. Moreover, once you use the soul transfer magic, won't you be able to multiply your energy? Why should you be afraid of luck?" He smiled lightly and walked out, leaving behind a sentence. "Don't tell me that you don't even know how to use the soul transfer magic." The Dharma Supreme disappeared. The 8 of them looked at each other and stood there in a daze. This method, of course, could work. There was no problem for a veteran pharmacist with experience in the medicine banquet to suppress a newbie like Chu Yang. Moreover, even if one of them couldn't suppress him, how could all of them be inferior to him? Even if they made 8 mistakes, there was still one left. However, as long as Chu Yang made one mistake, it would be over. The chances of winning were above 10%. It could be said that it was foolproof. However, the problem was that in this way, each clan would lose 2 of their most outstanding pharmacists. Skin from a living person, made into a human skin mask, and used the supreme martial artist's cultivation to create it, it could change the appearance in a short period of time. At least, it could maintain its vitality for half a year. Half a year later, when the human skin mask lost its effectiveness and started to wrinkle, the matter would basically be over. Using the soul transfer magic to transfer a portion of the energy of the skinned pharmacist's soul to another person's body, this person would be able to possess everything of this person for a short period of time, including skills. However, it was still only for a short period of time. The apothecary whose soul was transferred would definitely die. However, the apothecary who received the soul transfer would also die in half a year's time, vanishing from this world. In this way, it would be equivalent to the 2 top pharmacists of the younger generation and the older generation dying an unnatural death. However, while it was easy to destroy, how could it be so easy to nurture a pharmacist? It might not even be possible to have a talented pharmacist in decades or centuries. The contribution of an outstanding pharmacist to a clan was self-evident. This included treating illnesses, prescribing medicines, piercing meridians, increasing cultivation. The role of a pharmacist in the rise of a clan was indispensable. Sacrificing them just like that, just to prevent Chu Yang from being first. Was it worth it? All the second grandmasters looked at each other. For a moment, none of them could make up their minds. Why do I feel that the Dharma Supreme values this Chu Yang even more than that woman? Ling Fengyun frowned, somewhat puzzled. No, it's the Dharma Supreme values the heaven-nourishing jade, Xiaoxe added after some thought. What do we do now? Everyone's gaze was on Yi Di. Yi Di's face was covered in a dense fog again. He said softly, "If we go through so much trouble and sacrifice so many lives to kill that woman, but Chu Yang uses the heaven-nourishing jade to revive her, will our clan still exist? Since we can sacrifice so many supreme martial artists' lives, what's the point of 2 mere pharmacists?" Chapter 1070. The sword spirit's illusory figure floated and seeped into Chu Le-er's body like a wisp of mist. Zi Sheqing pressed one hand on Chu Le-er's head and the other hand on the purple crystal vat, continuously injecting yin energy into it. The purple crystal vat was originally yin energy, and the mysterious yin bone-destroying water in it was the world's #1 cold poison. As for the cold yin energy that Zi Sheqing injected again, in terms of its cold nature, it was even colder than the mysterious yin bone-destroying water. Chu Le-er's body was soaked in the mysterious yin bone-destroying water and had already fainted. Slowly, her body became somewhat transparent in the water. The water surface rippled and the sword spirit gave a message. Then, Zi Sheqing said lightly, "Medicine." Chu Yang took out this special incomplete heavy pill and put it into Chu Le-er's mouth. Once the heavy pill entered her mouth, it immediately turned into a rainbow-like color and exploded in Chu Le-er's mouth. Various colored mists disappeared into Chu Le-er's meridians. This was an incomplete version of the heavy pill. Although it was called incomplete because it lacked the materials of the rare herbs, in reality, it contained a lot of materials. The materials were so precious that it was almost the most precious since ancient times. Purple gas appeared on Zhi Sheqing's face. She exhaled lightly and spat out a gust of purple gas from her mouth. Then, Chu Le-er's body was also enveloped by purple gas in the next moment. Chu Yang could clearly see that on Chu Le-er's forehead, little by little black things slowly appeared. The color changed from light to dark, and slowly, they actually bulged out of the skin and dripped down like ink. Zhi Sheqing grabbed this black thing in her hand and threw it out. Then, she shouted softly, "Sword Spirit, you must protect the consciousness space." Suddenly, a gust of purple light shot out from her eyes. Then, a strong purple gas enveloped the entire purple crystal vat. Streams of colorful things emerged from Chu Le-er's body. But under this purple gas, they could not disperse. They obediently gathered into a stream and returned to Chu Le-er's mouth and nose. She breathed them in. "This is the innate poison of the mother's fetus." Zhi Sheqing said lightly, "This poison has the same name in all the planes. It is the poison of heaven and earth. This is the true source of all poisons in the world. Therefore, in the eyes of a quack, Le-er's illness is nothing special. No matter what, there was no way to cure it. But in the eyes of the Almighty, it was an earth-shattering opportunity, with the main body of the poison of heaven and earth as a foundation. The human-faced rainbow spider's poison core and the poisonous flood dragon's poison core. There's also the heavenly poison jade core, black blood poisonous core vine, and other deadly poisons in the world, as well as countless treasures. After Chu Le-er recovers this time, she'll have the heavenly poison body, an innate constitution. Zhi Sheqing seemed to be talking to herself. In one breath, he said, "Furthermore, with the purple qi of heaven and earth that I have painstakingly cultivated to circulate throughout my body, condensing my meridians and expanding my dantian. All the meridians in my body are opened. From now on, I will not encounter any bottleneck until I collapse the sky and shatter the void. The sword spirit protecting her space of consciousness is also a great fortune. Such a situation is hard to come by even in 10,000 years. I don't belong to this world. Therefore, I am a guest from another world. Similarly, the sword spirit does not belong to this world. He is a yin spirit. Therefore, our cooperation is the cooperation of heaven and earth. It is called reincarnation. After reincarnation, I will directly raise Chu Le-er's cultivation to the third stage of martial saint. In the future, the training of her skills and training will be yours." Zhi Sheqing opened her eyes and looked at Chu Yang. "Do you understand?" Chu Yang suppressed the excitement in his heart. "I completely understand. It's just that the sword spirit once said that Le-er needs to take 3 of such heavy pills consecutively. Is it?" "There's no need," Zhi Sheqing said decisively. "Without my help, of course, she needs 3 pills. But now, with my help, she has completely recovered." As she spoke, an illusory shadow floated out from the unconscious Chu Le-er. The sword spirit, who looked exhausted, entered Chu Yang's tribulation space without any hesitation. He only left behind 2 words, "Crazy." Zhi Sheqing smiled. Chu Yang asked, "What's wrong?" Zhi Sheqing snorted and said, "The method that I said caused this fellow to exhaust too much of his energy. He didn't know at first, but when I used the purple gas, he could only follow my method. Now, this fellow seems to have gone back to recuperate." The sword spirit muttered in the tribulation space, "What do you mean by exhausting too much of my energy? This evil woman almost drained all my energy. Even if it's the heavenly imperial court, this is definitely a waste. This crazy person actually used reincarnation in this heavenly imperial court. If I don't call her crazy, I'll really be letting her down." Chu Yang's heart shook. He knew that Zhi Sheqing was trying her best to create a team for Chu Yang because she was about to leave. He couldn't help but feel touched. After a long time, Zhi Sheqing removed her hand from Le-er's head and fished Chu Le-er out of the mysterious yin bone-destroying water. She used her energy to evaporate the water droplets on Chu Le-er's body. Then, she placed her on the bed and wrapped the blanket tightly around her. She heaved a sigh of relief and said, "It's okay now. She needs to sleep for 2 days. After 2 days, when she wakes up, she'll be a little girl who has reached the top in 1 step." Chu Yang was finally relieved and kept the purple crystal vat. But when he reached out his hand, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. The mysterious yin bone-destroying water in the vat had actually become warm. It was like the lake water that had been exposed to the summer sun for a whole day. The temperature was actually not low. Under reincarnation, the cold poison of the mysterious yin bone-destroying water has already become the energy of Le-Er's body. This is just some ordinary water. Zi Sheqing smiled and said, "If you don't mind that this is your sister's bathwater, you can use this water to make a cup of tea. It tastes pretty good too." Chu Yang gritted his teeth and nodded. "Okay. I've made some tea for you to drink first." During the meal, Mo Qingwu was still sitting beside Chu Yang. After waiting for a long time and not seeing Chu Le-Er, she was actually very disappointed. She said, "Where's that chiller-like little girl?" Everyone didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This girl was only 1 year older than Chu Le-Er, but she actually started to call her little girl shamelessly. Zi Sheqing smiled and said, "She's cultivating. When she comes out of seclusion, she'll look for you to fight." Mo Qingwu's little head was raised high, her chin facing the sky. She said disdainfully, "H, just her?" Zi Sheqing smiled and didn't say anything. Chu Yang glanced at her and thought to himself, "I don't know what this elder sister is thinking. Why did Le-Er's cultivation suddenly improve so much that it's actually higher than Qingwu's now, and now she's even urging the two of them to fight? SSS. This doesn't seem right either." Chu Yang was about to dissuade her when he heard Bu Liuqing say happily, "It's good to have a fight. My disciple can't lose no matter what." Supreme martial artist Bu was very optimistic. Chu Le-Er still couldn't cultivate yesterday. Even if she could cultivate today, she would have improved with Zi Sheqing's help. How much could she improve? His disciple had been tempered by the spiritual spring water and the mysterious yin bone-destroying water. Now, she was already at the monarch level. Just one more step. She was at the saint level. The Moon Breeze couple also laughed. Feng Yuro said half-jokingly, "Why don't Qianqian and Xiaowu have a fight too? Whoever wins can become Chu Yang's wife." Yu Lingxue laughed loudly. Wu Qianqian immediately lowered her head, her face red. Mo Qingwu pouted and said, "I can't fight with Sister Wu now. I can't beat her. I'll cultivate properly in a few days and fight when I surpass her." Everyone nearly fainted. "You've already surpassed her, what's there to fight about?" After everyone laughed for a while, Feng Yuro said, "These 2 days have been a little too quiet. Chu Yang, you shouldn't have appeared so forcefully. In this way, I'm afraid the Dharma Supreme and the big clans will target you." Chu Yang smiled lightly. "I was just about to talk about this problem. Because the upper 3 heavens is in a state of panic now. The Tribulation Sword Master is about to finish his apprenticeship. It's going to be another bloodbath soon." Everyone nodded silently. "It's fine if I keep a low profile, but the current situation forces me to do so. Especially after the battle with the big clans. I also remember that I'm at the heart of the struggle," Chu Yang said frankly. Everyone nodded again. "Therefore, once I rise in the future, people will definitely suspect that I'm the Tribulation Sword Master. In that case, the big clans will not rest until I'm dead. And I don't have the ability to go against the big clans now. Now that the Dharma Supreme has confirmed that I'm not the Tribulation Sword Master, I can only take this opportunity to be high profile and let the Dharma Supreme's words be further ingrained in people's hearts. Let everyone think that I rose before the Tribulation Sword Master. Otherwise, I can't afford to be called the Tribulation Sword Master." Chu Yang said jokingly. Moon Breeze couple, Dong Wushang and the others all laughed. "Therefore, the big clans will definitely be wary of me now, but they won't openly go all out against me. Moreover, on the surface, the situation now is that you guys are my backers. Therefore, if they want to deal with someone, they'll deal with you guys first." Bu Liuqing laughed and said, "So you'll have several years of opportunity to develop. And if they want to deal with us? It's not that I'm boasting, but in this world, There's really no power that can catch all of us in one fell swoop. For people like us, as long as they can't kill all of us in one blow, even if one of us manages to escape, will definitely be the nightmare of the big clans and law enforcement officers. Moon Breeze couple also laughed. What Bu Liuqing said was the standard truth. With their abilities, even if they were shamelessly besieged, even if they couldn't defeat them, it would be easy for them to escape. Zi Sheqing smiled faintly. Her expression was one of extreme restraint. Obviously, she was in full agreement with Bu Liuqing and Moon Breeze couple's words. In this world, there was no one who could hurt her. Absolutely no one. Chu Yang himself also agreed with this argument, but there was a faint worry in his heart. Although this was the truth, excessive self-confidence would definitely lead to a loss. He didn't have time to think about it. The news of the medicine banquet had already arrived. 3 days later, the semi-finals would begin. Let's continue to fight. After getting drunk last night, we've also released all the pressure we've been under for the past 10 days. Today, we're feeling refreshed. Therefore, we're starting to explode. Chapter 1071. Holding the notice in his hand, Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chu Le-er's injuries had already healed. And his main purpose of attending the medicine banquet was to heal Chu Le-er's injuries. Now, he couldn't use it and couldn't withdraw. He was in a difficult position. The heaven-nourishing jade is a good thing. Bu Liuqing saw his hesitation and said, "You must get the heaven-nourishing jade. That thing is equivalent to having an extra life." An extra life? Chu Yang asked doubtfully. Even if the soul disperses, the power of the heaven-nourishing jade can bring the dead back to life. This is the luck of all the pharmacists in the heavenly layer for 1,000 years. Bu Liuqing said lightly, "Even the heavens can be mended, let alone humans." Chu Yang's eyes lit up. He clenched his fists tightly and said, "There's actually such a miraculous item. Then, this heaven-nourishing jade is really a must. I must have it." Yu Lingshue's eyebrows raised slightly. He wanted to say something, but he forced himself not to. Only the best pharmacist in the world is qualified to get the remnants of the heaven-nourishing jade. You, Xiaoman, are already 20 years old and you're actually determined to get it. You're boasting. Then, during the semifinals, who's going to cheer for me? Chu Yang rubbed his fists and asked. You actually want to cheer for something that you're so confident in? Zi Sheqing was dismissive. Not interested. Qingwu can't go either. There are too many bad people. Bu Liuqing shook his head. No time. Moon Breeze shook their heads together. Guide the disciple in his cultivation. I want to practice my saber. Dong Wushang admired his dark saber without even raising his head. Cough cough, I'm going to sleep. Rui Butong yawned and rubbed his eyes. I'm so sleepy these few days. I'll accompany Wushang. Mo Leia smiled. No way. Chu Yang screamed. Such an important matter and you want me to handle it alone? Everyone was silent and busy, pretending not to hear. Mo Qingwu couldn't bear it. She said, Brother Chu Yang, I want to accompany you, but when Le-er comes out of seclusion and fights with me. Chu Yang laughed. On the third day, Chu Yang woke up early and went all the way to Han Xiaoran. Along the way, Han Xiaoran had a lot on his mind. After Chu Yang asked a few times, Han Xiaoran finally let out a long sigh. Brother, the Dharma Supreme summoned me last night to ask about your situation. Chu Yang's heart shook. He said, What did you say? Han Xiaoran spread out his hands and said, What else can I say? Naturally, he would say whatever he wanted to say. But, there's something wrong. Chu Yang smiled and asked, What's wrong? Han Xiaoran stopped and looked at him deeply. He sighed softly and said, Brother Chu, I know that you're hiding something. Moreover, the strength behind you is also strong enough. This time, your strong appearance has indeed shocked the heavens. But, let me give you a piece of advice. Chu Yang said seriously, Brother Han, please speak freely. I'm all ears. After all, a backer is just a backer. If you really want to stand firm in the heavens, you still have to rely on yourself. Han Xiaoran said seriously, even if you have a backer, what you're doing is too ostentatious. It is not a coincidence that the Dharma Supreme asked about you. I can faintly feel that. He raised his head and looked at Chu Yang, saying, you have to be careful. There's a murderous intent behind this. Chu Yang's heart moved. He said gratefully, thank you, brother. I'll remember it. Han Xiaoran said with contradiction, as a law enforcement officer, it's disgraceful for me to secretly communicate with you. However, you didn't do anything wrong. Moreover, you've been of great help to us law enforcement officers. I can't bear to see people being ungrateful. Sigh. Chu Yang nodded. He could feel the contradiction in Han Xiaoran's heart. As the law enforcement master, he was the confidant of the Dharma Supreme. No matter what the reason was, Han Xiaoran felt that Han Xiaoran was bending the law for favoritism when he said this to Chu Yang. To Han Xiaoran, who had always been impartial and upright, this was indeed very precious. It was even unbelievable. However, the Dharma Supreme had murderous intent towards Chu Yang. Chu Yang firmly remembered this matter in his heart. When the two came to the registration area, it was already crowded with people. Most of them were from the big clans. There were thousands of people squeezing at the entrance. The pharmacists entered one by one, but the crowd was not allowed to enter. They could only wait outside. Han Xiaoran sent in the identity token that Chu Yang received that day. After a while, someone shouted. The last pharmacist to enter the semifinals, Lin Ri. Everyone was in an uproar. Lin Ri, there's actually someone with this name? Chu Yang was also stunned. What's going on? Why isn't I here? I'm actually the last one. That person shouted at the top of his lungs. Lin Ri. Lin Ri. Is Lin Ri here? Chu Yang and Han Xiaoran were both stunned. They squeezed in and wanted to ask for clarification. Why was Chu Yang the first to pass? Why was there no place for him now? The next moment, both of them didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They saw that the pharmacist was holding up Chu Yang's token. He was still shouting at the top of his lungs, Lin Ri. Lin Ri. Where have you been? Han Xiaoran went over with a black face and scolded in a low voice, bastard. Do you know how to read? That's 2 words. Chu Yang. What Lin Ri? That pharmacist was stunned. He flipped the token over and held it in front of his eyes. With a look of surprise, he said, that's right, it's Lin Ri. Bastard. Han Xiaoran snatched it over. He was also dumbfounded when he saw it. The handwriting at the back was sloppy. Chu Yang's Chu character was severely separated. Only the Lin character at the top could be seen clearly. As for the lower part, it was just a curve. Chu Yang's Yang character was even divided into 2 characters. And because of the sloppy handwriting, the side of the radical looked like a Yang character. At first glance, it was the 3 words Lin Ri. There was absolutely no mistake. It was the 5th elder who was too excited and casually scratched out Chu Yang's name. The handwriting was too sloppy. It took a long time to explain it clearly. There was a lot of chatter around. What the heck? This person's name is Lin Ri. TSK, what a good name. Someone was amazed. Lin Ri. Ha ha ha. Who's going to name the next one water sex? Another person had a wretched look. Isn't this Chu Yang? When did he change his name to Lin Ri? This was someone who knew young Master Chu. Phut. Ha ha ha. What a good name. It's too rapey. Another person held his stomach and laughed. Chu Yang entered the venue of the semi-finals with a black face. Behind him, there was a lot of whispers and countless weird looks. Minister Chu gritted his teeth. Lin Ri. Motherfucker, when I see that old 5th elder later, I must ask him in detail and clarify everything. This was a huge loss of face. In front of him was a long row of platforms. Within a radius of a few hundred feet, there were no big clans or law enforcement officers except for the platforms, pharmacists, and the judges of the Medicine Valley. Here, the Medicine Valley had the final say. Any other forces, even the #1 Dharma Supreme in the world, were not qualified to watch the competition here. There were only 13 pharmacists who entered the semifinals. Everyone was facing a platform. On the platform, there was a lonely medicine furnace. Every medicine furnace was exactly the same. However, Chu Yang vaguely felt that there was something strange about the aura of a few of the pharmacists. This was clearly a kind of oppressive feeling of death that came from the suppression of one's divine spirit. Moreover, it was these few people who were paying attention to him, whether intentionally or not. Their eyes were filled with hatred and there was a bone-chilling murderous aura. It was as if they could not live under the same sky with him. However, when Chu Yang wanted to observe them quietly, he realized that these people had all turned their heads around without leaving a trace. They faced the medicinal cauldron directly and did not even look at Chu Yang from the corner of their eyes. Chu Yang only saw a few expressionless faces. These faces reminded Chu Yang of the young valley master of the Medicine Valley who hosted the auction. Chu Yang was stunned. These people's faces were very familiar. He remembered seeing them a few days ago and they were all very lively. Why, then, in the direction of the entrance, the people of the Medicine Valley began to disperse. They actually chased all the people who were cheering for them a few 100 feet away. At such a distance, there was no need to talk about cheering for them. Those who were weak in cultivation could not see anything at all, let alone recognize the pharmacists on their side. Then, many experts of the Medicine Valley surrounded the place from all directions. The Medicine Valley's defense of this medicine banquet was so tight. Then, a white shadow flashed in front of Chu Yang and the others, and 3 people in white appeared. One of them was holding a stack of cards. It was the zombie-faced young valley master. He said rigidly, "Fellow pharmacists, I am the owner of the prescriptions of the Medicine Valley. These 2 beside me, one is the high priest of the Medicine Valley and the other is the second high priest. The 3 of us will be the judges of your semifinals." There was a commotion among the pharmacists. The high priest and the second high priest. These 2 people were once people who had won the honor of being the #1 pharmacist in the world back in the day. Everyone was really flattered that these 2 people would be the judges in person. Chu Yang's eyes also lit up a little. But then, he realized that the zombie-faced person next to him was expressionless. There was no change in his eyes either, as if he was already prepared. "Now, let's start the roll call." The zombie-faced young valley master looked at the cards in front of him and picked up the topmost card. He read, Lin Ri. Chu Yang's card was the last to be handed up, so it was naturally at the topmost. So, the young valley master called his name first. Chu Yang's face was full of black lines. He said, "It's not Lin Ri. Young valley master, this is my card. The 5th elder's handwriting is messy. He wrote my name wrong." The zombie-faced young valley master couldn't help but be surprised. He lowered his head and looked carefully for a while before he recognized that it was indeed a very abstract word, Chu Yang. The corners of his mouth twitched. He said, "Chu Yang." Chu Yang answered loudly, "Here." The young valley master grunted and raised the card in front of his eyes again. He muttered to himself, "It really looks like Lin Ri." Chapter 1072. Everyone roared with laughter. Although the young valley master had a straight face, he was still a little embarrassed. He was much more careful when he called out the names again. He looked at the names and then at the faces of the people before announcing that they had passed. He called out the names one by one. When he reached the Ling clan, it was Ling Hanwu's name. Chu Yang looked over and saw that Ling Hanwu's expression was stiff. He was even more rigid than those from the Yi and Xiao clans. Chu Yang was startled again. He said tentatively, "Uncle Ling, you're here too." Ling Hanwu grunted and said, "Yes." Chu Yang was stunned. What was going on? Moreover, the way Ling Hanwu was looking at him was also very strange. Looking at him from the side, he saw that his face seemed to be completely pale. Chu Yang's words attracted the attention of the young valley master of the Medicine Valley. He was also startled and suddenly asked, "You know each other?" Chu Yang coughed twice and said, "Something's not right." The young valley master was stunned again. Then, he pondered and moved closer. Ling Hanwu couldn't help but want to avoid him. The young valley master shouted, "Don't move." He circled around Ling Hanwu and muttered curses. There's indeed something fishy going on. Returning to his original position, he shouted, "Ling Hanwu of the Ling clan, come out." Ling Hanwu answered and stepped out. The young valley master stepped forward with a solemn face and tore off Ling Hanwu's face. What appeared behind the mask was actually the image of another person. The high priest and second priest's faces darkened. What the hell was the Ling clan doing? How could they impersonate someone else in such a once-in-a-thousand-years ceremony? Why is it you? Where's Ling Hanwu? The high priest suppressed the anger in his heart. He asked in a low voice. This person was the candidate from the Ling clan to participate in the medicine banquet previously. He actually appeared again this time. That person stammered, "Second master. Second master, he was drunk yesterday and couldn't get out of bed." Chu Yang was speechless. There was actually such a thing. Was he drunk? This second master Ling was indeed his teacher's rival in love. He actually got dead drunk at such a crucial moment. The high priest snorted heavily and shouted, "Ling Hanwu of the Ling clan is not here. Time is up, we can't wait any longer. Expel this person from the competition. The Ling family will be disqualified." Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the pharmacist from the Ling family was sent flying by a flurry of punches and kicks. The three from the Medicine Valley continued to curse in dissatisfaction. This was the first time something like this had happened in the past 10,000 years. He was drunk. Thinking of these 4 words, the 2 consecrators felt as if they had eaten a fly. Of course, that wasn't the case for the Ling family. Ling Hanwu of the Ling clan was indeed drunk, but the reason why he didn't come was not because he was drunk. Ling Hanwu had come to participate this time. It was just that he had snatched the spot. Their true motive wasn't the medicine banquet, but Yi Chu Chen. If Ling Hanwu went on stage, he would definitely lose. However, the Dharma Supreme's request was to exclude Chu Yang. Ling Fengyun naturally couldn't bear to peel off the skin of his great-grandson's face and perform another soul transfer, so he randomly grabbed a pharmacist and performed the soul transfer technique to transfer the pharmacist's luck. He then used a human skin mask to create Ling Hanwu's face, and let the previous top pharmacist take his place in the competition. But things were after all too rushed. After all, this human skin mask wasn't as useful as directly using the soul transfer magic art as a living person. Although the Ling clan had put in a lot of effort, the medicine banquet only recognized the token and not the person. Once one entered, the roll call would be over. Who would have thought that Chu Yang would actually start talking to Ling Hanwu at this moment? Wasn't this purely being insensible? All the pharmacists of the medicine banquets. Who would chat with each other? Were they asking you to compete? Or were they asking you to chat? But it was Minister Chu's first time participating, and no one had reminded him about the things to take note of. Greeting an acquaintance was a natural etiquette. Who would have thought that this call actually eliminated the Ling clan? Such a lucky hit really made one not know whether to laugh or cry. When the pharmacist from the Ling clan left, his gaze was as if he wanted to swallow Chu Yang alive. Outside, the people from the big clans gathered in a group. A few of them were watching, and when they saw that the Ling clan was actually chased out, everyone's expression was very interesting. The supreme martial artist from the Ling clan who was in charge here was even more gloomy. Yi Shiyu from the Yi clan twisted his butt and said sarcastically, "This is really strange. The Ling clan, hehe. How are we going to explain this matter?" The supreme martial artist from the Ling clan was ashen. The Dharma Supreme had personally arranged it, but the Ling clan had sent an imposter. How were they going to explain this matter to the Dharma Supreme? When that person came out and asked, he found out that this matter was actually ruined by Chu Yang again. For a moment, he couldn't help but grit his teeth so hard that they almost shattered. This jinx. Ever since the Ling clan met him on the road, nothing good had happened to them. Inside, the names were called. The high priest gave a few instructions, and then the people from the Medicine Valley walked in with trays one by one. A tray was placed in front of everyone. Then, an unlit incense stick was placed in front of everyone. When Chu Yang saw this, his heart couldn't help but skip a beat. Although the amount of medicine on this tray wasn't large, there were many types. In addition, there were extremely cold items, extremely yin items, extremely hot items, extremely poisonous items, extremely nourishing items. There were a total of 30 types of medicine, but basically all of them had conflicting medicinal properties. Using such things to refine medicine, perhaps, just mixing two of them together would be enough to poison a person to death. Next, I will announce the rules of the competition. The high priest looked at the people in front of him and said, "As you can see, there are 30 types of medicine, taken from various extremes in the world. Each type is only enough to refine one pill. Your task is to refine all of these medicines within the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn out. The requirement is to use 2 conflicting types of medicine to refine medicine. The minimum required is 5 great nourishing pills and 5 extremely poisonous pills. This is the minimum requirement. Whoever can refine the most will have the purer medicinal properties. Whoever can refine the most will win. This competition will be ranked from the top to the bottom. Only the top 10 will be chosen. Those who use the wrong medicine will be automatically eliminated. Before the incense stick burns out, those who don't complete the task will be automatically eliminated. 5 great nourishing pills and 5 extremely poisonous pills. Those who don't complete the task will be automatically eliminated. Destroy any of the materials. Automatically eliminated. Those who use any means to disturb others in refining medicine will be automatically eliminated. Those who use any external help will be automatically eliminated. A series of automatic eliminations was announced. Even Chu Yang was a little scared. These requirements were really too harsh. They had to use medicine with completely conflicting medicinal properties within the stipulated time. To complete all of this, conflicting medicinal properties. How to adjust? Once the adjustment was not done properly, the furnace would explode and the body would be injured. The medicine would be completely destroyed. The degree of refinement was equivalent to walking on a tightrope on a high cliff. Furthermore, it had to be done at least 15 times. For a moment, all the pharmacists looked at each other. Chu Yang suddenly felt that the pharmacists from the big clans. It seemed that there was no accident. Furthermore, their eyes didn't even move. Could it be that they cheated? Chu Yang's thoughts flashed. Could it be that they knew the competition's topic in advance? That they were prepared? Looking at the calm expressions of the 7 or 8 people, the more Chu Yang thought about it, the more he felt that his conjecture was really too reasonable. He couldn't help but grit his teeth. Damn it, do you think I can't cheat? At this moment, the high priest shouted, "Now, light the incense stick. Begin immediately." The pharmacists who had brought the tray over had been standing in front of everyone all along. Now that they heard the order, they immediately went forward. After lighting the incense stick, they immediately retreated silently and left the competition grounds. The high priest and the other 2 also retreated as light as feathers. They retreated until they were 300 feet away and looked over. All the pharmacists immediately got busy, picking the herbs, extracting their essences, mixing them immediately, adjusting the furnace, observing the temperature. Only young Master Chu stood there like a wooden chicken, not moving at all. The pharmacists from the big clans looked at this dazed fellow who was obviously at a loss because of these rules. They couldn't help but gloat. Damn it, he had never experienced such a situation before. For a rookie who had just participated in the medicine banquet for the first time, he actually had to give up his life. What an injustice. Although the clans had promised that their descendants and relatives would be taken care of tenfold in the future and be the first to enter the Hall of Elites, but, to die just like that, everyone still felt uncomfortable in their hearts, who wanted to die. Even if it was someone whose wife was stolen or he was castrated, the thought of dying would only appear in the first few days or months. Once this period of time passed, they would get used to living on. No one wanted to die in this world. Especially to die for such a dazed fool. They were even more unwilling. As they cursed in their hearts, their hands kept moving. At this moment, no one dared to fall behind. Because if they couldn't complete the mission, not only would they die, their clan's preferential treatment would also be revoked. On the other side, young Master Chu was still as dazed as a wooden chicken, not moving at all. No one knew that this sword Master Chu's divine senses had already sunk into his consciousness space at this moment. He called out, "Sword Spirit, it's your turn. They are all cheating, let's cheat too." The sword spirit rolled his eyes and said, It's obvious that you can't do this at all. Even if they don't cheat, you still have to cheat. Why are you acting so righteous now? Chu Yang said calmly. Of course, cheating is something that must be done no matter what. But since they are also cheating, then it's even more reasonable for us to be righteous. The sword spirit let out a long sigh. Cheating. He can even do it so righteously. This sword master is really different from the rest. Left with no choice, the sword spirit could only step forward. Chu Yang's body trembled slightly. This degree was just a very normal slight tremble. But no one knew that this body was no longer under the control of young Master Chu himself. Instead, it had been replaced by a 100,000-year-old monster. As for young Master Chu himself, of course, he comfortably soaked in the soul-tempering pool and took a bath. He muttered to himself, "Isn't it just cheating? What's the big deal? This sword master is just about to take a rest. What I want is the heaven-nourishing jade, not the competition." Chapter 1073. Half of the incense stick was already burnt. Chu Yang was still motionless. He was still standing there, looking at the herbs in front of him without moving. As if he was having a headache, as if he was thinking, as if, in any case, he was not moving. The young valley master frowned and looked at Chu Yang. In the end, Chu Yang had given so many herbs to the medicine valley to make up for his mistake. He really had a good impression of Chu Yang. At this moment, seeing that Chu Yang was not moving, he could not help but feel anxious for him. What the hell? The young valley master muttered to himself, "Are you going to be eliminated here?" The high priest and the second priest also knew this person who seemed to have endless elixirs in his hands. At this moment, they were also surprised. What's wrong with this guy? I don't know. Has he never done such a thing before? It's possible. Time is running out. Sigh. Maybe he's lost his mind. This is the first time, it's inevitable. The two of them sighed. Seeing that half of the incense stick was already burnt, they sighed at the same time. At this moment, even if Chu Yang started to move immediately, it would definitely be too late. To do such a thing in such a short time, even the two of them would definitely not be able to do it. What a pity. Bang! Suddenly, the medicinal cauldron in front of an alchemist exploded into pieces. Following which, the alchemist sighed sadly. He took a good look at the charred medicine in front of him and silently retreated. This explosion seemed to have activated a mysterious curse. Instantly, the sound of explosions rang out continuously. One by one, the pharmacists retreated. Suddenly, it seemed a little sparse. More than half of it will be burnt soon. The high priest looked at Chu Yang regretfully and said, "I'm afraid he has no chance. Let's look at the others." The second priest agreed. Just as he was about to turn his head, he suddenly exclaimed softly and widened his eyes. He moved. He moved. He actually only moved at this moment. Oh my God! If Chu Yang had only moved, the second priest would not be so surprised. The problem was that now, even if the high priest and the second priest worked together, they would not be able to finish this in time. Chu Yang suddenly moved. How could this not be shocking? Was he trying to make a final struggle? The High Consecrator said uninterestedly, "If he moves, he will lose for sure." He subconsciously turned his head to take a look. Immediately, he sucked in a breath of cold air and was stunned. The wrinkles on his face smoothed out, and his snow-white beard spread out in all directions. The second consecrator had never heard such a sentence from his mouth for hundreds of years. Fuck his grandfather. So fast. However, at this moment, the second high priest couldn't care less about being shocked by the head high priest's foul language. He was staring at Chu Yang's movements. Chu Yang was silent when he was still, but when he moved, he was like a thunderbolt. With a wave of his hand, the 30 herbs were neatly divided into 15 portions. It was incomparably nimble, and the medicinal properties were incomparably conflicting. Both of them were the two herbs with the most intense collision. Then, he slapped the medicine furnace with his right palm. Suddenly, a green flame spurted out from the medicine furnace. His left hand picked up 2 kinds of herbs and threw them into the medicine furnace. He actually didn't use the essence treatment. The second consecrator groaned. Wrong. When his herbs flew into the medicine furnace, the dregs flew out automatically. The high consecrator's eyes were sharper. There's such a miraculous method. The second consecrator murmured, in this way, won't he save the time needed to extract the essence? That's right. Next, let's see if he can create a miracle and finish refining all the herbs in the obviously insufficient time. The high consecrator pondered. At this moment, Chu Yang slapped the medicine furnace again, and the flames surged again. The flames turned into a blazing white color. This will completely destroy the herbs. The young valley master was obviously also paying attention to Chu Yang. At this moment, he murmured. However, his voice hadn't faded when he saw Chu Yang pat the medicine stove. 2 pills flew out, and fell into the empty tray that had originally been filled with medicine. Then, with a flip of his hand, another 2 herbs flew into the medicine furnace. The dregs of the herbs flew out automatically the moment they flew into the medicine furnace. The flames surged again. He actually refined 2 pills in one go. The second consecrator felt as if he was dreaming. When I participated in the medicine banquet back then, in this round, I only refined 1 pill for every 2 herbs that collided. Me too. The high consecrator stared blankly. So impressive. The second consecrator murmured. Indeed impressive. The high consecrator muttered as he stroked his white beard. Almost instantly, the flames under Chu Yang's medicine furnace changed colors a few times like a rainbow. He slapped the medicine furnace. Instantly, another 2 pills were shaken out and landed in the tray. When the pills came out, the 2 herbs also entered the medicine furnace at the same time. 1 came out and 1 went in. The connection was seamless. Another 2, another 2, another 2. In a row, 20 pills had been refined. Chu Yang only had 4 sets of herbs left. It's indeed amazing. However, he wasted too much time in the beginning. At this moment, with his speed, he can only refine 2 more batches at most. It's already too late for him to refine all the herbs. According to the rules of the medicine banquet, he still lost. What a pity, what a pity. The high consecrator looked at the incense that was about to burn to its end and sighed deeply. Such a talent, yet so careless. Sigh. What can I say? The second consecrator also sighed dejectedly. Even I want to change the rules for him, the high consecrator sighed. The rules can't be changed. It's just that this bastard is too pitiful. At this moment, the pharmacists from the other 7 big clans had already finished refining the herbs. They stood up, panting heavily as they sized up the others. There were 7 to 8 people who also stood up. Everyone was sweating profusely. With such a short period of time and such an important task, they really couldn't spare any attention. Only now did they have the time to look at the results of others. Then, they all looked at Chu Yang at the same time. Chu Yang was the most important enemy in the medicine banquet this time. Everyone was startled when they looked at the tray in front of Chu Yang. There were 20 pills on the tray in front of Chu Yang. Everyone sucked in a breath of air. The most they had was only 15 pills. This guy actually refined 20 pills. But when they took another look, they immediately felt relieved. This guy actually had 4 more herbs that he hadn't refined yet. The incense was about to burn to its end. He still had to take out the herbs in the furnace and refine them. There wasn't enough time. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Damn it, what's the use of having good skills? According to the rules, you still lost. The task given by the clans was finally completed in this second round. Boom. The pharmacist from the law enforcement officers in the north was originally about to finish refining, but when everyone turned to look at Chu Yang, he couldn't help but take a look as well. This look was a tragedy. When he saw Chu Yang's skillful movements and those 20 pills, he was instantly shocked. Then, when he saw that there were still 4 more herbs in front of Chu Yang, he was instantly overjoyed. Shock followed by joy. His emotions were stirred up and he didn't control the flames well. The 2 medicinal properties clashed violently in the furnace. As the flames burned, the furnace actually exploded with a bang. The last pill actually exploded. This pharmacist wanted to cry but had no tears. Oh my God, how did this happen? At this moment, This pharmacist almost wanted to commit suicide, but then, he felt comforted. Anyway, this Chu Yang is done for. With him being eliminated with me, it's not embarrassing. With this thought, he actually felt at ease. Under everyone's gaze, Chu Yang stretched out his hand and clapped. Another 2 crystal clear pills flew out from the furnace and landed in his hand. There was only a little bit of the green thread left. It was about to burn to its end. This little bit of time was only enough to refine 1 furnace. But Chu Yang still had 4 more furnaces to refine. At this moment, even if a deity came, there was absolutely no hope. The high priest and the other 2 heaved a sigh of pity at the same time. Such a prodigy was ultimately not fated to be number 1 in the world. The next moment, everyone's eyes widened at the same time. At the same time that those 2 crystal clear pills landed in Chu Yang's palm, Chu Yang slapped the platform. With a bang, the 4 matched herbs flew up together. Under everyone's incredulous gazes, they entered the furnace at the same time. Then, Chu Yang slapped the furnace. The flames suddenly blazed and burned fiercely. They turned greenish-white and emitted the hissing sound of the flames burning fiercely. He actually wanted to refine 4 different herbs with completely conflicting medicinal properties at the same time. This isn't a dream, right? All the pharmacists, the young valley master of the medicine valley and the 2 high priests on the street also opened their mouths wide and rubbed their eyes with their hands. This was simply unbelievable. Among the big clans, a few pharmacists snorted. Playing to the gallery, he knew that it was already too late, yet he purposely came up with such a super difficult move. Was he trying to leave himself a way out? But, no matter how you leave yourself a way out, you lost. You lost. This, no one could change. The next moment. Bang, 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 bang. Chu Yang's right hand slapped the furnace continuously 4 times. In the first slap, the flames suddenly turned red and rushed straight up. On the second palm strike, the flames turned blue and illuminated Chu Yang's face, making it look like a sea of blue. In the third slap, the flames suddenly changed. With a series of hissing sounds, they returned to white. In the fourth slap, the flames turned into the color of the night with a whoosh. It was not as fierce as before, but was burning gently. Chu Yang's hand slapped the furnace again. In an instant, the flames were like a rainbow, constantly changing colors. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple, all kinds of colors were constantly changing like a revolving lantern. In the blink of an eye, it had actually changed hundreds of times. Time's up. The young valley master sighed and raised the hammer in his hand, ready to strike. The incense stick had burned to the end. There was only a last bit of light left. The next moment, it would be extinguished. Bang! Bang! The sound of Chu Yang's palm hitting the furnace and the sound of the young valley master's hammer hitting the furnace rang out at the same time. It was as if they had discussed beforehand. Time's up. The moment the young valley master shouted this loudly, 8 glittering and translucent pills of different colors flew out of the furnace and fell into Chu Yang's hand. They were emitting different smells and colors. Not one more, not one less. Before the young valley master's announcement had even ended, Chu Yang had already finished. Chapter 1074. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Only 8 elixirs fell from Chu Yang's hand onto the metal tray and spun around. A total of 30 elixirs were in the tray. Every one of them was perfectly round and had a faint layer of elixir halo around them. There were all kinds of colors and rich scents. When the crowd saw this scene, they were all stunned. No one had expected that Chu Yang would really accomplish such an unbelievable and completely impossible thing. He, really, completed it. The second priest and the high priest looked at each other and saw the strong disbelief in each other's eyes. Everyone present was knowledgeable. Which one of them wasn't an expert? How could they not know that such a level of difficulty was as difficult as ascending to the heavens? 8 types of medicinal herbs were mixed in pairs. To refine a single cauldron required precise control and rich experience in refining elixirs. Any cauldron would explode. If 2 types were refined at the same time, Even the high priest only had a small chance of success. As for refining 3 types at the same time, the high priest didn't even dare to think about it. But Chu Yang actually refined 4 types at the same time, without any confusion. Just by looking at the color, halo, roundness, and smell of the elixirs, one could tell that there was no need to test at all. This was a supreme-grade elixir. Refining 8 types of medicinal herbs at the same time and refining different types of elixirs in one cauldron. This was simply a miraculous skill. The few people from the 7 superclans all looked as if their parents had died. They couldn't be blamed for being depressed. These people, including the other 3 doctors from the law enforcement officers, had already gone through the medicine banquet once. This time, it was a walk in the park for them. It wasn't difficult to do this. They passed the previous time. How could they be eliminated this time? But what made them depressed was that they had already gone through it once. This time, Chu Yang gave them half the time, but they still couldn't compare to him. Not only was the quality far worse than Chu Yang's, even the quantity was actually twice as good. How could these proud and arrogant pharmacists accept this? The high priest and the second priest immediately instructed people to count the results of all the pharmacists. The results were as expected. Chu Yang was ranked first. Whether it was the medicinal properties, the quantity, the effect, or the purity of the medicinal herbs, he deserved to be ranked first. Furthermore, he had used the least amount of time, and the techniques he had displayed were even more dazzling and breathtaking. First place, Chu Yang. He used the time it takes for an incense stick to burn and used 15 poisonous pills. Each pill was enough to poison a monarch-level expert to death. 15 great tonic pills. Each pill could increase one's cultivation by 10 years, strengthen one's body, and strengthen one's foundation. Because of the quality of the poison, it was already very impressive for Chu Yang to be able to poison a monarch-level expert to death. The poison pills refined by the other people were also frighteningly poisonous. However, the most potent poison of them could only kill an emperor-level expert. Moreover, even though Chu Yang had only used half an incense stick's worth of time, he had used up the entire incense stick's worth of time. Therefore, the time was still counted as 1 incense stick. However, everyone knew clearly that Chu Yang had only used half an incense stick's time to get first place. Twice the time, several times the result. Although everyone was uncomfortable with Chu Yang being the first to pass, they had no choice but to accept it wholeheartedly. Second place, Xiao Clan's pharmacist, Xiao Sheng. Then, Yi Clan's pharmacist, Shi Clan's pharmacist, Lan Clan's pharmacist, Zhuge Clan's pharmacist, Chen Clan's pharmacist, Law Enforcement City's pharmacist, West Law Enforcement Department's pharmacist, top 10. The name list was out. The sword spirit had already returned to the tribulation space. For an old monster like him, such a small matter couldn't be any simpler. Chu Yang's consciousness returned to his body. He shook his neck, stretched and rubbed his eyes. Seeing that everyone was staring at him in shock, he chuckled. That's it. So fast. I feel like I'm done before I even did anything. This was the truth, absolutely from the bottom of his heart. He didn't do anything in the first place. However, in the ears of the others, the trace of admiration that had just arisen suddenly turned into monstrous anger in an instant. You're done before you even did anything? What nonsense are you talking about? Your hand had turned into a shadow just now. Could it be that what's on your wrist isn't a hand? Is it a hoof? Motherfucker, I've never seen such a smug person. Everyone could tolerate someone who pretended to be obedient after receiving benefits, but they couldn't be like you, right? The head high priest's face twitched as he walked over enthusiastically. Brother Chu is truly a promising young man. Just now, when you were refining pills, this old man's horizons were truly broadened. Chu Yang said modestly, I'm ashamed, the high priest is too kind. I didn't prepare in advance and rushed into the battle, so I didn't perform at my best and almost messed it up. I'm ashamed, how can I deserve such high praise from the high priest? This was also the truth. He really didn't prepare in advance. The sword spirit also didn't perform at his best. With the sword spirit's strength, he could throw in 30 herbs at the same time and refine 30 different types of elixirs. However, this statement of truth was like a cannon fired across the entire map. completely offending all the number 1 pharmacists present. The high priest and the second priest opened their mouths, but didn't know what to say. This little guy is too arrogant. If you didn't perform at your best, we're already far inferior. If you perform at your best, we'll all seal our own cultivation and jump off the building. He coughed a few times and announced the name list. Then, he gave each of the 10 people who passed the semifinals a different card. This card was the proof of the finals. This time, when the names were engraved, Chu Yang stared at it with wide eyes. Please don't engrave it as Lin Ri again. That would really be fucked. Then, the Medicine Valley used a special communication tool to announce the results of the semifinals. Countless people's jaws dropped at Chu Yang's first place. The finals would be held in a month's time. Chu Yang is first. In the temporary headquarters of the Law Enforcement Department, when the Dharma Supreme heard this, he smiled bitterly and murmured, "Is the legacy of the medical saint so powerful?" Then, he immediately ordered, "The Ling clan is only pretending to be obedient. Let Ling Fengyun give me an explanation himself." Then, he said, "Send a copy of Chu Yang's true identity to each of the super clans." Someone from the Shadow clan agreed and quickly took action. The Dharma Supreme took 2 steps with his hands behind his back. His eyes were deep as he murmured, "I can't see through it, but he can't see through it too? It's good that he came earlier." The Dharma Supreme's eyes flashed, as if he had made up his mind. He shook his head lightly and smiled lightly. What a headache. Then, with a flash of his body, he slowly disappeared from this space. Disappeared without a trace. While Chu Yang was competing, the Orchard Palace was in full swing. Dong Wushang's black saber displayed great power, suppressing the joint attack of Rui Butong and Mo Lei-er. Zi Xieching watched for a long time and finally said, "Brother Yu, go and feed that little guy. Just don't kill him." Yu Lingxue obeyed and went up against Dong Wushang. This time, it was Dong Wushang's turn to be extremely aggrieved. He turned from an awe-inspiring figure into a punching bag. He was battered and exhausted. However, Dong Wushang had a heroic and ruthless spirit. The more he was defeated, the braver he became. His black saber seemed to have the help of the gods. Every time he was defeated, he would charge forward. Yu Lingxue was so bored that his legs were uncomfortable, so he immediately started a round of torture. Feng Yuro, on the other hand, was feeding Rui Butong and Mo Lei-er moves and sparring. There were some differences over there. Rui Butong was naturally still a punching bag, but Mo Lei-er was slightly more relaxed. Mo Qingwu was not idle either. She was practicing. Now, the one feeding Mo Qingwu was Wu Qianqian. Wu Qianqian and Mo Qingwu could be considered acquaintances. The two of them were very intimate together. Wu Qianqian's current cultivation was much higher than Mo Qingwu's. Feeding Mo Qingwu was a piece of cake for her. However, Wu Qianqian's master, Moonbreeze, was lectured by Zi Xieching. She pointed out that Wu Qianqian's foundation was far worse than Mo Qingwu's. It was far from the solid foundation that Ning Tianya and Bu Liuqing had built for Mo Qingwu. Although Wu Qianqian's cultivation had been forcibly raised now, if she maintained such a foundation, her future development might not be good. Feng Yuro and Yu Lingxue nodded. However, Zi Xieching's words made the couple very depressed. With Qianqian's aptitude and the foundation that you guys have built, it's not a problem for her to collapse the sky and break the void. But, have you not thought about the future development? With such a weak foundation, how can she occupy a place in the heavenly imperial court where so many strong people are born? Wouldn't that be a waste of Qianqian's completely natural body of pure yin? This sentence made Moonbreeze and Feng Yuro feel dizzy. It should be known that the two of them were also working hard for the ultimate goal of collapsing the sky and shattering the void. The foundation that they had laid for their disciple could completely surpass the two of them. The two of them had already wasted Niu Erhu's strength and sacrificed too much to achieve this. Now, from Zi Xieching's words, collapsing the sky and breaking the void was actually just the beginning. However, Zi Xieching's words also pointed out the value of Wu Qianqian's aptitude, a completely natural body of pure yin. This was different from the transformation that was made after birth. Also, even if she can't practice your moon breeze as one divine technique for now, you must teach her the incantation first, right? What if the two of you were plotted against by someone? Would it be lost? Zi Sheqing's words made Moon Breeze and Feng Euro smile bitterly. This big sister really dared to say anything. She didn't have any scruples. She directly said that if the two of them died, the divine technique would be lost. However, from these few days onwards, the two of them also stopped improving Wu Qianqian's cultivation. Instead, they focused on strengthening her foundation. Every day of training made Wu Qianqian miserable beyond words. However, Zi Sheqing suddenly realized something special about Wu Qianqian. This lady, no matter how tough or tiring it was, she never made a sound. Sweat poured down like rain and she was so tired that she vomited blood. However, her eyes were clear and she was still determined. This was almost the same as Chu Yang's. This kind of perseverance was amazing. Just at the moment when the Dharma Supreme's figure disappeared, the Dharma Supreme has left. In the Orchard Palace, Zi Sheqing looked at the sky far away thoughtfully. She said lightly, he actually left Tianji City at this time. Chapter 1075. Zi Sheqing was in the Orchard Palace, but her divine senses had covered the entire Tianji City. After all, she was still worried about Chu Yang's competition and was constantly paying attention to the movements in the arena. As long as there was any abnormality, she would immediately tear through space and go over. Who would have thought that she would unintentionally detect the Dharma Supreme's departure? Bu Liuqing was opposite her, watching Mo Qingwu practice each move and said absent-mindedly, he left, so be it. It's no big deal. There's basically no use for him to stay here. Zi Sheqing frowned and said, but he shouldn't have left at this time. There must be something important for him to leave at this time. And now, in Tianji City, only we are a threat to the Dharma Supreme. So, if he left, I'm afraid it's to deal with us. Bu Liuqing laughed and said, however, I really don't believe that there's any power in this heavenly continent that can deal with us. Bu Liuqing couldn't be blamed for being so confident. The Dharma Supreme was obviously not his match now, and there was also the Moonbreeze couple here. More importantly, there was also Zi Sheqing, a super expert that even he himself couldn't compare to. Even if it was just Bu Liuqing alone, he was confident that he could kill all of them. Moreover, there were so many super experts gathered here. Bu Liuqing said conceitedly, don't worry. As long as the Dharma Supreme's brain isn't kicked by a donkey, he won't choose to deal with us at this time. No matter what, he'll have to try to take us down one by one after we separate. That's the only way, but he still has to consider if he can bear the consequences. Zi Sheqing frowned and thought deeply. She nodded slowly and said, that's right. Even if it's a siege, they only have the confidence to attack one person. If they encircle all of us at the same time, I'm afraid that all the forces in this heavenly continent won't be enough to stop us from escaping. Bu Liuqing watched with satisfaction as Mo Qingwu's moves became more and more skillful. He chuckled and said nonchalantly, don't worry about them. Even if you leave, you don't have to care about them. Zi Sheqing nodded lightly. Bu Liuqing looked at the few young people who were practicing and said, I have to say, Chu Yang has some foresight. Look at Dong Wushang's future achievements. I'm afraid he won't lose to old Ning Tianya. Zi Sheqing said lightly, not only that. This Wu Qianqian, Mo Qingwu, Chu Le Rui Butong, Mo Lei in the future. I'm afraid they will all surpass all of you. They will definitely be influential figures in the Heaven Imperial Court. Bu Liuqing said in astonishment, this Dong Wushang, Xiao Wu, Chen, and that Leia, it's fine. But this Rui Bu Tong, isn't his aptitude a little too ordinary? You actually think so highly of him? Zi Sheqing smiled and said telepathically, you are mistaken, Rui Butong. This is a phoenix. 70% of the phoenix bloodline has been awakened. Bu Liuqing's jaw dropped for a long time. Phoenix. There was actually a phoenix among Chu Yang's brothers. This matter was too unexpected. Bu Liuqing had not felt such a shock for so many years. Today, he finally tasted it. She felt as if her heart had stopped beating. After a long while, he suddenly closed his mouth with a catcher sound. He almost bit his tongue. Then, he hurriedly transmitted his voice, I heard that dragons and phoenixes are closely related. If that's the case, then there must be a golden dragon among Chu Yang's brothers. Zi Sheqing nodded deeply. Not only that, Chu Yang also has the spiritual spring water. If the spiritual spring water is further improved, it will become the most precious treasure of the fairy clan, the spring of life. Bu Liuqing bit his tongue and muttered, could it be that this guy has gathered all the big clans that had disappeared? Zi Sheqing smiled lightly. I heard that one of Chu Yang's junior brothers is the reincarnation of the king of the 3 Stars divine clan. Bu Liuqing's face turned ashen. He was directly shocked by this news. He stared for a long time without saying anything. After a long time, he curled his tongue and said, the world is going to change. Only then did he realize that Zi Sheqing had already left. With a bang, the door of Chu Le-er's room suddenly exploded. Then, Chu Le-er rushed out with a whoosh. Everyone exclaimed, she actually has such a speed when she has just started cultivating. But then, bam! Chu Le-er's petite body crashed into the rockery. With a loud boom, a large piece of the rockery was knocked down. Stone chips flew everywhere. Everyone was dumbfounded. Then, the little girl stood up and wiped her face. With a wave of her hand, the rockery collapsed with a crash. What's going on? The little girl anxiously stomped her foot. With a loud bang, the ground shook. A hole the size of her foot clearly appeared under her feet. It was so dark that she didn't know how deep it was. In the next moment, a fountain gushed out of the hole with a puff sound. The little girl was standing there, dumbfounded. She couldn't dodge in time and was instantly drenched. Ha ha ha. Mo Qingwu held her stomach and laughed. It was so funny. Since the little girl came out, there had been a series of embarrassing things. She had never seen a fountain that came out of her foot and actually drenched her whole body. Dong Wushang and the others couldn't help but smile. Bu Liuqing and Moon Breeze were stunned. The 3 of them knew the pros and cons of this. This kind of cultivation was at least at the saint level, right? 3 days ago, she was still nothing. Now, she had suddenly reached the saint level in a single bound. This, so fast. Even a deity wouldn't be able to do it so quickly, right? What was a meteoric rise? At this moment, the 3 of them truly understood the true meaning of these 4 words. Of course, the 3 of them also knew that this was because Chu Le-er really didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. Now that she suddenly had such great power, she didn't know how to restrain it. It was precisely because of this that it was even more shocking. Le-er, how is it? Zi Sheqing smiled and asked, does your body feel relaxed? Chu Le-er frowned and checked her whole body. She suddenly realized that the suffocation in her chest had disappeared without a trace. The top of her head, which was originally a forbidden area, was also extremely refreshing now. It was as if her whole body had been broken and reassembled. There was a sense of freshness and relaxation everywhere. I've recovered. Chu Le-er looked at her hand in disbelief. She pinched her arm hard and cried out in pain, but her eyes were immediately filled with tears of joy. You've recovered. This time, you've completely recovered. I don't have to worry about your illness anymore. Zi Sheqing laughed and said, you little girl, you've really put me through a lot of trouble. Wow. Wow. Big Brother fan is really great. Chu Le-er raised her hands and cheered. Big Brother has finally cured my illness. Long live Big Brother. Big Brother is the greatest, haha. Big Brother, my Big Brother. Zi Sheqing's face was black and gloomy. The gentle smile on her face also froze on her face. Little girl, I've spent so much effort to completely cure you, and even paved the way for your future and laid a solid foundation for you. I've completely changed your physique, condensed your spirit, expanded your consciousness as much as possible, built your meridians into an existence that even people in the heavenly imperial court would be jealous of, and turned your dantian directly into a bottomless pit. You actually didn't even mention me. Once you heard that I've recovered, you only thanked your big brother. Other than your big brother, no one else actually got it. This was really intolerable. Only your big brother is good. Zi Sheqing said with a black face. Chula-Er's eyes turned and she threw herself into her arms. She said coquettishly, "Sister-in-law is good too." Hee hee. Zi Sheqing's face instantly turned red. She said angrily, "Who's your sister-in-law? Hurry up and practice your martial arts to familiarize yourself with your strength." Mo Qingwu rubbed her palms and jumped over. Little girl. Your sister-in-law is here. Come, let me teach you a lesson. I'll spar with you. You're not even fully grown and you actually want to be my sister-in-law. Chula-Er snorted. I'm just about to teach you a lesson. When enemies met, their eyes would be exceptionally red. In an instant, punches and kicks were exchanged and the two little girls were entangled in a tussle. How could Chula-Er, who had just recovered and was not familiar with her strength, be a match for Mo Qingwu, who was skilled in martial arts? Once they started fighting, she was instantly at a disadvantage. Bu Liuqing wanted to go forward and stop them, but was held back by Zi Sheqing. Only the method of exerting strength that she figured out herself is her nature. At this moment, don't stop them. Just let them fight. After this round, teach Le the method of exerting strength and controlling her strength. Only then can it be imprinted in her mind and she won't forget it. When Chu Yang returned, he saw that the orchard palace was filled with dust. The two little girls were yelling and fighting in a fight. He couldn't help but be stunned. This, what's going on? Bu Liuqing snorted and turned his head away, not saying a word. His own disciple wanted to be this concubine. He really couldn't stand the sight of him. Zi Sheqing snorted. Her face was as cold as ice and she ignored him. Chu Yang rubbed his hands, coughed twice and said, "Number one. I'm number one." No one bothered with him. In the bathroom, Minister Chu walked over to the side of the two little girls to watch the fight. In the next few days, everyone was busy practicing martial arts. Under Zi Sheqing's guidance, Chula-Er's improvement was like 1,000 miles per day. Chu Yang also finally took out the guide to the world of poisons that had been completed by the sword spirit. Chula-Er seemed to be very interested in all kinds of poisons. These few days, she studied eagerly. Every day, she only had a little time to practice martial arts and meditate. Half of her time was spent on studying the guide to the world of poisons, sparring with Mo Qingwu, sparring with Wu Qianqian, sparring with Dong Wushang. Her days were very fulfilling. But these few days, Tianji City was peaceful. It was as quiet as a pool of stagnant water, without the slightest ripple. This kind of calmness was unusually scary. There was a kind of pressure that seemed to be slowly approaching, like a storm was coming. It was different from Bu Liuqing and the rest who didn't care. Chu Yang suddenly remembered Diwu Qingrou's reminder after the auction that day. Chapter 1076. This strange silence reminded Chu Yang of Diwu Qingrou's reminder. During the medicine banquet, the competition would be fierce every time. There were many underhanded schemes, but this time, it was so peaceful. It was as if the big clans suddenly remembered the 10,000 years of friendship between them and started to treat each other respectfully. And the previous grievances seemed to have completely disappeared. Such a situation should never happen. It was absolutely illogical. Behind the calmness, there must be turbulent waves. Chu Yang's 2 lifetimes of experience told him that this situation was strange. The big clans and the law enforcers must have other plans, and Diwu Qingrou's reminder was definitely not without reason. It must be known that Diwu Qingru was taking a huge risk by standing up and reminding him in that kind of situation. But even so, Diwu Qingru still reminded him. That meant that Diwu Qingru must think that there was danger, and this danger was related to Chu Yang's safety, and Chu Yang's safety was related to the big plan of the Diwu clan. So even though it was risky, Diwu Qingru still stood up and said such a sentence. Now, Chu Yang had the same feeling as Diwu Qingru, danger. It's as if I've changed my identity after some planning. I've completely driven away the identity of the Master of Calamity sword from me. I've changed my appearance, and can openly develop in the upper 3 heavens. It was a good thing that he had changed his identity from the dark to the light. But the price he had to pay was that he would have to face the suppression of the big clans openly, and the conflicts between the big clans would turn into secret lines. If they were not seriously provoked, they would not erupt for the time being. Chu Yang had been prepared for such a situation. But Chu Yang suddenly woke up at this moment. He hadn't expected that the first crisis he was about to face would be his friend. And they were all extremely stubborn. Because of Zi Xueqing's unparalleled cultivation, Chu Yang had always overlooked this crisis. But now, this strange silence made Chu Yang realize something. He couldn't help but ask himself, if I were a big clan, what would happen? If I were the Dharma Supreme, what would happen? Chu Yang was deep in thought. It was already late at night. He sat alone on the roof, looking at the gloomy, grey, and cold night sky. He felt that his mind was unprecedentedly clear. Sword Spirit, I need you to help me clear up my doubts and straighten out my thoughts, Chu Yang said softly. What's the matter? The Sword Spirit asked. I'm also puzzled about something. I was just about to discuss it with you. Chu Yang was startled. What's the matter? The Sword Spirit said in a low voice. The sword force of Calamity Sword is clearly in Tianji City. It has been found in the same place for tens of thousands of years. Why is there no reaction this time? The Sword Spirit frowned. This shouldn't be the case. In the past, so long as we came to this area, the Astral Sword would sense our arrival and the call of the Calamity Sword. I could clearly sense the location of the Astral Sword as well. However, it didn't happen this time. I originally thought that it was because the Zhuge clan had concealed the secrets of the heavens, but now it seems that the Zhuge clan clearly didn't make any effort in this aspect. What's the reason for this? Chu Yang pondered and said, then, could it be that someone beat us to it? That's impossible. The Sword Spirit denied flatly. The Astral Sword of the Calamity Sword is involved in the operation of the heavens. Who could beat us to it? Even a supreme martial artist would definitely be killed by the backlash, and after this person dies, the Astral Sword will automatically return to its original position. Therefore, there is absolutely no possibility that the early bird will be the first to arrive. That might not be the case, Chu Yang said indifferently. Can one of the tribulations take in the Astral Sword? The Sword Spirit snorted and said, you mean, the Dharma Supreme? Absolutely impossible. If he cultivated for another 10,000 years, he might be able to temporarily take in the Astral Sword for his own use. But now, it's absolutely impossible. It's impossible for the Dharma Supreme. Is it possible for Wu Jueqing? Chu Yang asked, do the previous tribulations know of your existence? The Sword Spirit pondered for a moment. No. The existence of the Sword Spirit is a top secret that only the master of the Calamity Sword knows. It's impossible for the other tribulations to know. In other words, they only know about the Calamity Sword but don't know that there's actually a Sword Spirit in the Calamity Sword. Chu Yang pondered. Yes. The Sword Spirit said, you mentioned Wu Jueqing just now. If Wu Jueqing, maybe there's a possibility, Chu Yang said solemnly, then there should be no mistake. The Astral Sword must have fallen into Wu Jueqing's hands. The Sword Spirit sighed. If that's the case, we must retrieve it. The Astral Sword is an important part of the Calamity Sword's strength. A few days ago, Zi Xueqing already talked about the Heaven Imperial Court. Then I can tell you that the Astral Sword is extremely important in the Heaven Imperial Court. Chu Yang nodded. Every part of the Calamity Sword was important. Chu Yang felt more and more that the Calamity Sword contained an earth-shattering secret. It couldn't be missing any part. It was just that it was easier said than done to snatch the Astral Sword back from someone like Wu Jueqing. The Sword Spirit also fell silent. Wu Jueqing's whereabouts were unknown. It was difficult to find him, not to mention that his cultivation was already superb. Even if they found him, how could they retrieve the Astral Sword if he wasn't willing? If the Astral Sword was really lost in Wu Jueqing's hands, this matter would be extremely troublesome. What is it that you don't understand? The Sword Spirit changed the topic and asked. If you were the Dharma Supreme, or Yi Di and the rest of the big clans, what would you do? Chu Yang frowned and said, these few days have been very peaceful, but I keep having an ominous feeling in my heart. Ominous? The sword spirit smiled. How can the Dharma Supreme and the rest be a match for Zi Sheqing, Bu Liuqing, Feng Yuro, and Yu Lingxue? Don't worry, it'll be fine. No. Chu Yang said seriously, this is too presumptuous. If we can't afford to offend them, shouldn't we? If we can't afford to offend them, should we give up our current benefits? The sword spirit was stunned. Why should we? Isn't that courting death? Chu Yang said indifferently, if I were the Dharma Supreme and the others, standing in their shoes, after seeing that Chu Yang has such a powerful trump card and backing, I would be shocked, suspicious, in danger, and unable to eat or sleep. In this way, I'm thinking, with the support of these 4 people, what can't Chu Yang do? The rise of a new big force is inevitable. But now, the division of forces in the upper 3 heavens is very clear. A new force must snatch the original force. Moreover, the authority of the Dharma Supreme has also been seriously challenged. If Chu Yang really rises, wouldn't it be telling the world that as long as you have the ability to make the Dharma Supreme give in, you can do the same? In that way, Chu Yang's ability and reputation will be above the Dharma Supreme, and as the Dharma Supreme, he will definitely not tolerate such a thing. But now, he can't afford to offend us, but the more he can't afford to offend us, the more he wants to get rid of us. Therefore, under such circumstances, he must think of a plan to get rid of all these people who threaten the authority of the upper 3 heavens. Chu Yang frowned and said, the problem is, what method does he have to get rid of Zi Sheqing, Bu Liuqing, Feng Yuro, and Yu Lingxue? Or is there any method in this upper 3 heavens continent to kill Zi Sheqing, Bu Liuqing, and the rest? The sword spirit pondered for a long time and shook his head. After thinking for another long time, he still shook his head and said, there is indeed no way. The sword spirit pondered. You see, if these 4 people don't move, they will definitely not dare to touch you. Because anyone with a discerning eye can see that Zi Sheqing is with you. She is Chula Er's teacher, and you are Chula Er's elder brother. Bu Liuqing is here because Mo Qingwu likes you. For his disciple, Bu Liuqing has no choice but to help you. The Moon Breeze couple is here because of Zi Sheqing, and also because Wu Qianqian is in love with you. Therefore, these few experts are all gathered together because of you. If you die, although these experts will be separated, the revenge of these people is not something even the Dharma Supreme can bear. Therefore, they will not deal with you, nor Mo Qingwu and the rest. They will directly cut off the source. If Zi Sheqing, Bu Liuqing, and the rest are all dead, although you, Mo Qingwu and Wu Qianqian have amazing potential, after all, you have not grown up yet. By then, a random bounty will be enough to kill you. Therefore, to deal with your rise, the only way is to kill Zi Sheqing first. After killing Zi Sheqing and Bu Liuqing, your power will basically be gone. But as for how to kill these 2 people, that is something that I have no idea of. Not to mention Zi Sheqing, even if it is Bu Liuqing, if he wants to escape, even if the first-generation elder master of the big clans, the Dharma Supreme and all the high officials and elders of the Dharma Supreme attack Bu Liuqing and severely injure him, as long as Bu Liuqing wants to escape, even if he is on his last breath, he can still escape at any time. This is the power of a peak 2nd-grade supreme martial artist. It can be defeated, but it is absolutely impossible to stop him from escaping. Therefore, your worries are completely unnecessary. The sword spirit concluded. No. Chu Yang said, what if we create a situation in advance where they are unable to retreat and can only fight to the end? What kind of situation would make such a person unable to even retreat? Scruples. What scruples can there be? The sword spirit asked. If Mo Qingwu, Wu Qianqian, and Chula are all controlled, in a place, before we are rescued, I am afraid they will not leave. Chu Yang voiced out his biggest concern in a low voice. Chapter 1077. Such a thing should never happen. The sword spirit comforted him. Now that you have successfully cleared your suspicion of the Tribulation Swordmaster, and the appearance of the Tribulation Swordmaster is imminent, why would they waste so much effort on a sudden rise of power? Even if they could really do it, have you thought of the price they would have to pay? At least 700 supreme martial artists would die if they sent out 1,000. The sword spirit said, in this way, it would be equivalent to wiping out all the elites of the heavenly layer. Who could afford such a loss? If the tribulation sword master were to attack at this time, would the big clans be at his mercy? Chu Yang frowned and said, but I have a feeling that this is highly likely to happen. The sword spirit snorted. The sense of crisis in Chu Yang's heart grew stronger and stronger. He had first mentioned this to Zi Sheqing, but Zi Sheqing only smiled disdainfully. Before he could say anything to Bu Liuqing pointed at the door and said, get out. When he mentioned it to the Moon Breeze couple, they smiled reservedly, listened to him politely, and then sent him out politely. Now that he mentioned it to the sword spirit was still quoting the facts and reasoning, telling him that such a thing would never happen. Such a unanimous response still couldn't dispel Chu Yang's sense of crisis. Instead, because of their reactions, Chu Yang became more and more worried. His heart felt more and more oppressed. The more Zi Sheqing, Bu Liuqing and the rest didn't care, the more Chu Yang felt threatened. But he couldn't change the minds of these 4 people. There was nothing he could do. Chu Yang had a lot on his mind. Zi Sheqing and the rest were different from Mo Tianji and Jiu Duxing. If it were those few people, as long as Chu Yang mentioned it, even if it was impossible, Mo Tianji and the rest would do their best to guard against it. But these few people were all powerful people of the world. Every one of them was a figure that no one dared to challenge. After so many years, they had already cultivated a confidence that looked down on the world. Not to mention that there was no danger. Even if there was really great danger, not only would these people not avoid it, they would even throw themselves into it to try. This was the conceit and pride that belonged to the top expert. It had nothing to do with personality. However, the thing that Chu Yang was most afraid of and worried about right now was precisely their pride as a powerhouse. Seeing that even the sword spirit didn't agree with his point of view, Chu Yang had no choice but to end the conversation. He let out a long sigh, and then called Mo Qingwu, Chu Le Wu Chanxian, Dong Wushang, Rui Butong and the others. There is one thing that I want to warn you about. During this period of time, don't go out if you can. Even if you want to go out, Qing Wu, you must not be more than 30 meters away from your master. Qianqian, you too. Le you must never leave Big Sister Zi's side. Wu Shong, the 3 of you don't have to worry about this for the time being. But you have to be careful and try not to go out. Chu Yang instructed with a heavy face. This was the best solution he could come up with. There was no other way. Moreover, this was the only way to kill Zi Sheqing, Bu Liuqing and Feng and Yu at the same time, after careful consideration by Chu Yang. Zi Sheqing and Bu Liuqing would never retreat before rescuing Chu Le Mo Qingwu and the others. They would make use of the special terrain, lay in ambush beforehand, use sneak attacks and various other methods to weaken their battle power. Finally, gather all the supreme martial artists of the heavens and besiege them. But as long as they didn't give them such a chance, even if they wanted to do so, they might not be able to do so. Chu Yang frowned and repeated this arrangement again with a heavy voice and a heavy face. The juniors all obeyed Chu Yang's instructions and agreed to it one after another. After the arrangements were made, Chu Yang was still a little worried. Diwu Qingrou's words were still echoing in his mind. The enemy's strength is far stronger than what you see. It was late at night and Chu Yang couldn't sleep. He put on his clothes and went to the flower rack, deep in thought. How strong exactly was the enemy's strength? A white shadow flashed and Zi Sheqing appeared. Are you still racking your brains over your wild thoughts? Zi Sheqing teased with a teasing smile. I'm definitely not wild imagination. Chu Yang said angrily, I'm worried for you. Do you know? Why do you always feel that there's no danger? Even if you're skilled and brave, this matter is really not a small matter. Zi Sheqing smiled faintly and sat down in front of him. Her beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as she said, back then, when I was in another continent, the overlord of that continent had a favorite son. He took a fancy to me and used all kinds of tricks. In a fit of anger, I killed him. After that, the entire continent mobilized thousands of experts to besiege me. Everywhere I went, there was a massacre. Guess what happened in the end? Zi Sheqing winked at Chu Yang. What happened? Chu Yang asked weakly. Thousands of experts, none of them survived. The world's hegemony turned into dust. Xi Sheching said lightly, there were at least 5 experts who were above the Dharma Supreme now. Chu Yang said weakly, but can the two worlds be compared? You were alone then, but now you have worries in your heart. The heavens are mysterious and unpredictable, the law enforcement officers are unfathomable, and the big clans have a strong foundation. What makes you think that these people can't kill you? If they can kill me, it's their ability. If I'm killed, I can die without regrets. Xi Sheching said lightly. Suddenly, she turned her head and asked with a smile, are you so concerned about whether I'll be killed or not? Why? Chu Yang was not in the mood to discuss this at all. He said casually, if you leave, I hope you leave safely. If you stay, I hope you stay safely. Whatever you want to do, I hope it's out of your own will. Even if you die, I hope it's a natural death. I don't want you to die. It's that simple. Chu Yang said lightly, there's no reason and no reason. Xi Sheching looked at him deeply and a gentle smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She lowered her eyebrows and said, I'll take note. Chu Yang sighed, but, you're clearly trying to comfort me. You don't care about those people at all. You're only worried about what will happen after you leave. But, you've never considered what kind of danger you'll face while you're here. You're too arrogant. As Chu Yang spoke, his anger rushed up. He said angrily, why can't you listen to me? Woman, why are you so careless when it concerns your own safety? Xi Sheching smiled lightly and stood up. I'm going to sleep. Sleep my ass. Chu Yang was furious. Can you listen to me? Xi Sheching did not answer. She turned and left. Stop right there. Chu Yang was furious. But Xi Sheching's figure had already disappeared. Bang! Chu Yang kicked the stone table in front of him and scolded angrily and powerlessly, bastard woman, what an unreasonable woman. Arrogant woman. Detestable woman. Detestable. Detestable. He scolded angrily and vented his anger. However, Xi Sheching did not come out to teach him a lesson. In the room, Xi Sheching stood in front of the window, looking up at the gloomy and cold sky. Her eyes were filled with gentleness. Her eyes were clear and there was a smile on her face. She stood there quietly, listening to Chu Yang's angry scolding. Her whole body was filled with gentleness. Chu Yang lay down weakly. He knew that he could not convince these people about this matter. If he wanted to avoid future developments, he could only rely on his own efforts to resolve it, or rather, to save it. But I don't have such great ability. Minister Chu was very upset. In the next few days, Chu Yang's demand for information increased. Nangong Shifeng and his brothers were also exhausted from running around. He spent his purple crystals and bought a bunch of information. What made Chu Yang depressed was that even this mysterious information purchasing place could not provide any information about the hidden forces of the big clans. As for Mo Qingwu, Chu Le and Wu Qianqian, Chu Yang had also repeatedly reminded them over and over again these few days. Towards the end, even Wu Qianqian was a little surprised that Chu Yang was actually such a busybody. Do you have to harp on and on about the same thing over and over again? After another 5 days, it was still peaceful. However, Chu Yang's mouth actually had a ring of blisters. The most powerless thing in the world is knowing that something bad is going to happen, but being unable to stop it. Chu Yang looked up at the sky and sighed. Of course, during this period, Chu Yang did not forget to find out about Meng Chaoran. Chu Yang had long known that Meng Chaoran had also come to Tianji City. During this period, he had also been paying attention to the movements of Yi Chuchen and Ling Hanwu. However, he did not find any clues. It was as if Meng Chaoran was just a drop of water that had entered Tianji City and melted into the sea. As if there was no movement at all, Chu Yang's search was fruitless. He could not help but admire his master's superb concealment skills. In this world, there were not many who could hide from his all-out investigation. Ever since the Dharma Supreme left, there was no movement. Xi Sheching kept a close watch but did not notice the Dharma Supreme's return. On this day, Chu Yang wrote a bunch of invitation cards. Dong Wushang personally went to deliver the invitation cards. Yi Shiyu from the Yi clan, Ling Hanwu from the Ling clan, Xiao Sansi from the Xiao clan, Meng Se from the Jiao clan, Zhuge Changchang from the Zhuge clan, Shi Yunping from the Shi clan, Chen Feitian from the Chen clan. These were the few clans that were still in existence in the great clans. They were also the rising stars of the great clans in Tianji City. Chu Yang's motive was very simple. First, he would chat with these people and interact with them in the long run. Once he discovered any abnormalities, he would first take control of all these people and play a hostage against a hostage. An eye for an eye. Although he knew that these people were far from enough, it was the most powerful counterattack that Chu Yang could come up with at the moment. When Dong Wushang returned, the news that he brought back made Chu Yang so angry that he smashed the stone table with his palm. No one was free. Every one of them was very polite, but every one of them was frighteningly busy. They said in unison, after the medicine banquet, "We will invite Brother Chu to have a good gathering." In short, they were not coming. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.